with Magic Without Fears. And our special guest, the host of the, I was about to say the host of the Jackrabbit podcast, but that's not true. It's the Whole Rabbit. How's it going? Can you hear me, sir? I hear something. Is that a whole rabbit?
Hey, how's it going?
There, we have you.
Okay, let me see if it's start video. Okay.
Oh,
hey, what's up?
Look at that. I love your setup.
Oh, thank you.
Geez, that looks a lot better than my sister's bed.
Let's see if I can get Mari in here. She's supposed to be here.
Cool. I can spill hot coffee on it. Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Yeah. You look like you're ready to run a shadow run on a mega corporation. Decking from the terminal.
Sorry, man. I'm trying to get Mari in here, and my boss is texting me right now for some reason. So
let me talk to the boss. I can handle that.
Okay.
Give me their number. My phone's dead, but I can make it work by sheer force of will.
Dude, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I try to.
Yeah, we're powerful beings, brother. Listen, children, to my story. It was written long ago. I'll pause the recording till she gets here.
Dude, how are you? Some people need to. Okay, I used to throw mountain parties. So that's the first time I felt like I had hit what's the word?
Wait, is this off the record? Should I hit pause?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to hit pause. I just haven't hit record yet.
All right.
Okay. Are you recording this? I should be recording then.
No, it's a recording to the cloud, and you can then download from the cloud, same as me.
Okay, I'm just control freak, so I'm gonna do it my way.
You do it, baby.
Anyway, I used to throw mountain parties, and that's the first time that I experienced directly my true will, even though I didn't know what it was called. I knew something was happening, and I've always been a believer in God, but I've never had a theological pocket to put it in, at least, especially not at that time. But I knew when I felt that feeling. So for somebody who has mountain parties in their true will, being isolated and not being able to hug anybody or touch anybody or even shake hands or anything like that literally is driving me fucking crazy. It drove me crazy around the time we first met, and I just got used to it. I just kept smoking weed. I wasn't able to stop.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's it. I could imagine people killing themselves. It's really fucking easy to imagine.
Hello.
Yeah, it's very sad. Hello. Who is this? Shall we get you on video as well?
Marty Sampson.
Oh, I don't do the vidges.
All right, that's fine.
She's my handler from I don't know what organization Marty Sampson works for, but she has taken renaming in accordance with naming procedures.
I feel like I must be related to the CIA, as I got handled today.
You know, I never have video. I never get video images when I do interviews with like the Mossad, so that's normal. Welcome to our Mossad agent.
I'm so happy we're doing this week.
Don't call me
RC, I just can't
Mossad.
fucking.
I'm so not. I'm a cowboy.
She's like, no, don't even associate me. She doesn't chant Hebrew all day like we do. Hold on. I chant Enochian now. We're gonna get into that.
I have no Jewish heritage, FYI.
I tried to prove I was Jewish.
There's no point.
But-
Like I am not. There's no way I can be an Israeli citizen
I wanted to be.
because I don't have
Have
the
you
blood.
seen the women?
Enjoy.
I hear they're wonderful women.
I want to make baby them. Jesus.
Ugh.
I want lots of little Jewish babies. All right. Where's my? I'm gonna go close the window because I can't have my neighbors hearing me talk all this.
Jelly.
They listen to Fox News, and I don't want to get lynchified. Be right back.
So what's your?
We're gonna talk about
name?
some of. We're gonna talk about some of this stuff. Oh, sorry. I need to introduce you to. Fred, this is the guy I did the XXX interview with, Mari, when I was going through my Enthusiasmos, which I'm sure we'll talk about it. And this is Mari Sama, Samurai Queen. She sort of signed on right after I, liquefied all my generals. And
I mean, I was
and
commenting.
then she signed on to be my friend after I liquefied everyone. So she's fucking crazy.
I was ready before that, but the important part, the important part is that I started paying for the Patreon when he needed somebody.
Well,
No.
that's the trick, I guess.
Maybe. Yeah. I always need more money.
I'm glad to hear
But
you're
it's so
learning.
much more than that.
I'm glad you're taking tips from the Grand Master, Luke, and just liquefying people that displease you.
Hey,
I'm ready to be liquefied, master.
you have to be very
Grandmaster.
careful with moles, because apparently there are some people that think that my consciousness mixed with the spice melange will end the universe itself.
Luke,
but I don't do that anymore. And if I do, I don't tell anyone. So
but Luke,
I didn't say that. But
Luke, if I'm okay, what if I have moles? Does that mean that I'm a mole?
Moly.
possibly you might not even know you're a mole. That's how.
What if you like
psychic programming shit works.
guacamole?
Do you have chopped jalapenos in it? Let me close the sliding thing and we'll get this thing started.
Just
All right,
go.
here we
Nice to meet you, Mari.
Yes. Sorry I'm late.
That's all right.
I'm glad it's on Zoom. I got banned off of Discord today, so hooray.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I think I got this. Are we praying? Are we doing a pre-podcast prayer?
I didn't.
No, we just said hi.
Kadosh, Adonai Elohim Sabaoth.
Oh my god.
It's like rock and roll for the demiurge.
I wish I could still sing.
Anyone can sing.
Yeah, I can sing low now.
The voice is the only muscle in your body that actually improves as you get older. So if you take care of your voice, by the time you're ancient,
Bruh.
and
What are we
Sanders age,
singing? What are we
you
singing?
could sing like an angel.
What are we gonna sing?
What about your dick?
What?
I mean, it's a muscle over time.
No,
It's
your
just
voice box, dude.
speaker.
Okay.
Oh, your voice box.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
Yeah.
We're talking about how the voice box has healing effects on the penis muscle.
That's a fact.
That's
Just
why
ask
it's work.
Crowley. Just ask
Do you have to
Crowley.
like okay, but at what angle? It's got to be like some kind of sacred geometry angle that you got to jam it into the voice box for it to be properly healed.
You have to be toning while it happens.
So like this vibrational effect.
Hello,
everybody,
and welcome to the Whole Rabbit. where we don't just post all of our personal information to social media so it can be parsed through by the various intelligence agencies. No, we get all of our handlers together for a giant party, cook up some pizza, and swig back a few drinks to engage on an epic conversation that will span the entire spectrum of human wisdom and stupidity at the same time. So, welcome everybody. Today, I'm joined by Mari-sama, as usual, the samurai queen of space.
Hello.
And also Frater RC, the most badass Darth Vaderian samurai hermetic ninja of Kadosh powers ever yet manifested on this fucking plane. Welcome to the Whole Rabbit.
Ave Babylon.
Ave Babylon to you. You know, that's who I'm about nowadays. And it's been
Maria.
Okay, she's all right too.
How about, I'm named after her.
So's my mom.
Did you just self-mom joke?
Well, my mother is Martha. So are Martha and Mary. It's wonderful.
Mari's kind of like the mom of the Whole Rabbit. You know, if we were in a big space together, she'd be the one cooking up all the food, pounding out the mochi. You know what I mean?
Making the flapjacks.
Yeah.
And the jackrabbit for the jackrabbits.
Oh, don't cook rabbits. They have no nutritional value. Mari Sampson.
Flapjacks.
I lost the window with all your faces. I gotta find it. Hold on. You found it. Okay.
Sorry.
Gotcha.
Sorry, we're kind of dumb together. So
I should have gotten stoned before this.
I thought you
Instead,
would.
I'm drinking coffee.
Are you just vaping?
Me, yeah.
Good
Yeah,
sir.
3 months off cigarettes and smoking cloves and stuff. So it's not easy, but I've done it. And I'm transitioning now to full ninja health.
I was gonna say,
unfortunately, they shut down ninjutsu class, even though we were doing it outside under the bridge on cement and in a park, and doing distance work like throwing plastic shuriken, dive rolls, tumbling, bow and jo and bokudo work. So it was as distanced as you can get. You're just hitting each other with sticks from a distance. But they shut that down. You can't even meet your friend on the street corner and say hi legally at present in British Columbia.
And so neither the Masons or the ninjas are able to meet right now.
Which means it's a bad time in the world for globalism, control, and assassination.
protest.
Whoa, buddy. Are we talking about real life? Because I heard somewhere that conspiracy theories were canceled. They were all racist. And we have to retire now from having beliefs about conspiracy theories and secret organizations and things like that. And besides, we're never really sure who to throw under the bus these days. So where do we begin?
Mari-sama has left the chat.
Yeah, Mari-sama has left the Discord for fraternizing with
Shut up.
who knows who.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, we
All
know
right.
you did something. I'm not asking what, because I know it was something.
I got censored today and it was not fun.
What's the point of Discord if you can get censored and banned from it?
And it's because they, like, the people that control it at the central location don't agree with something. It was something somebody else said that I didn't even know that person, and they said it in a different channel that I wasn't in, and I didn't even respond to it or talk or say anything, and I got banned today. And gosh darn it, I've never been banned from anything.
Well, welcome to the club.
I know it would happen eventually.
My first banning was when I got a bunch of people made fake accounts of me on Facebook pretending to be me, and then sent me a bunch of like death threats and calls to violence and stuff. And I shared those things and threats and fake profiles on my wall, and I got terminated.
You got blamed.
I got terminated for hate speech, but they were allowed to send the threats and make fake profiles of me. But when I posted those things and said, hey guys, anyone help me out with this? Hoping some of my lawyer friends and political friends or anyone with who wasn't in shock and being traumatized could maybe give me some advice. But instead it shut down my account and I was done.
And there's no way to appeal it. Yeah. Because they're
No
like,
appeal.
oh, you
No
were
appeal.
associated with that person. Like, well,
Yeah.
womp womp. What are you going to do?
I think we're heading towards a dangerous time in which like any communication with each other might, it's hard. I know if you say that, people are like, oh, they're never going to stop all human communications. Like, well,
What
they
about
sorta
half?
could. They
Even
sorta
half
could.
is
We've already
worse.
lost more than half of our ability to communicate.
No,
I
wait
mean,
a minute.
you can't gather-
Don't
you
you
can't
Well,
gather.
but
It
we've
depends
come
where
from
you
a
live.
though?
but we've come
depends where
from a
you live.
place we've come from a place where we weren't able to communicate like this before. And we
We were
used to
able to
have the
gather,
free
get
ability to
together.
do that. And now that everything's faster and more efficient, everything's being cracked down upon, and it's to the point where it's like innocent people are being caught up in this. And I know that for a fact. I've
Oh, for
seen it with
sure.
my own eyes.
Oh, so many innocent people are having their lives just destroyed and wiped out. Tons.
And they
tons.
say like, oh, if you're innocent, you have nothing to hide, then you don't hide but you can do a blanket ban, and there's no reason for it. These big tech companies have a monopoly on the internet, and that's not what it was for. That's not how it was built.
By that rationale, all politicians in the world should have their texts and their emails completely public if innocent people have nothing to hide, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Every level of our government and our economic system should be transparent if that's the case.
If
you
that's the
know
case.
but that's not the case.
I literally cannot imagine that being the case.
Like
The
right now-
second that was a rule, they would immediately just go buy burner phones like every other gangster.
Or make a private server.
I can't even get a Discord
Yeah.
account with a burner phone. Do you understand this?
You
That's
need to
how
talk to
fucking insane.
Hillary. You gotta talk to Hillary. Get one of those private servers. She'll hook
Oh,
you up, lady.
I
She'll
ain't
hook you
talking
up.
No, her private servers blow up. Or they shred themselves.
From
Don't
all
you
the
know
It's
that?
called a
going on them.
security measure, Mari Sampson.
Well, I like to preserve my data. Thank you very much. But
It's called privacy. If you've ever heard of such a thing, it's for the people who can afford it, not you or me. But
yeah,
you know.
I don't even have a
Automatic.
VPN anymore.
Is VPN even really secure? I think the only reason I've never
No.
used one is because I don't really believe that. It's like that. If I was the government, that would be the perfect way for me to find out who I should pay attention to. Just look at the people with who you have VPNs and ignore everybody else.
Well, now everyone has one.
100%.
Do they? Most people. I don't know anyone who uses a VPN.
A lot
personally.
of people do. It
Well,
depends.
I'm sure. I mean, they're very popular, and maybe I will use one if I find out more about them. But at this point, I don't really believe that they protect you from like Prism or the other systems that Snowden pointed.
They
that
don't.
were able to scan all your data.
They
Right?
don't. But most people use them to log into Netflix and see other movies that
Yeah.
that you
So
can't
if you-
see
if
in
you try
our
that
district or our
Yeah,
region.
if you try that in Canada, your internet service provider gets notified that you're using a VPN, and then notifies you that if you don't stop using it, they'll shut off your internet.
I've
Okay,
had that
well-
exact problem with fans on the show that they cannot find the same movies as us. They have to switch over to a VPN, and then they do get that warning that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
of course.
That's why America is awesome.
I don't know if you're being facetious or not, or sarcastic.
No, they send us cease and desist if you are uploading a lot. If you upload for a long time. I'm in Georgia, so we're a lot different than California, which is where Luke's located.
Shout out to Georgia. I got some adept friends from my good old Golden Dawn days in Georgia. There's some good people there.
But if you have a VPN and you're from like Cambodia, no one's gonna fuck with, like, your ISP isn't gonna know.
Well,
Like,
there's a lot more in some parts of Asia. There's more internet freedom, though. I think you're still being check out.
Well, I'm
globally.
saying we're in America. If you use a VPN, the ISP doesn't necessarily know.
Hmm.
So
Well, yeah, that appears to be the case, which is why you have so many people using affiliate marketing with VPNs, right? Because apparently, yeah, it does work in America.
and I'm also in cryptocurrency, and like if you can like VPN to another country, sometimes you can use certain trading apparatus, or you can buy certain coins depending on like what country you're in. But if it's banned in a certain country, you go to, there's uses for it. But
No.
you're right, at the end of the day, if you get in trouble, they can trace your signal. So
Gosh, no wonder Discord pulled the plug on you, you ruffian, you
Yeah.
hooligan, you
Well,
digital terrorizer of the information world.
you should be worried that I know where your mom lives then.
Oh, she's got guns though. She'll fucking kill you.
Don't I have gun.
My family was talking recently about how horrible it is that Americans have guns and want more, and that the best thing that could ever happen in America is to take away all the guns. And I looked at them after having educated myself a little bit more the last 14 months I was in California when we first talked, Luke.
Oh, gun.
And I was like, the only reason the state still has more freedoms than other countries is largely because of the armed civilian population. It's also a major reason why you guys have never been invaded. And if you get invaded, we get invaded.
Y'all
So
boys.
I'm glad you all have guns. It's a shame, like the point, this is often overlooked, and I bring it up a couple times. The problem with gun violence isn't because of your access to guns. We have just as many guns per capita in Canada as you have in the States. So just as many people have guns comparatively,
Or access to.
why don't we have and own them? Why don't we have the same violence level? And that was the thesis of Bowling for Columbine. But it seems like the premise, the thesis got lost in the shuffle of Michael Moore's dramatization of it. The actual point of that documentary was the difference in violence is due to culture. It's due to a violent culture. So it's really, which is odd because you guys don't allow the same amount of swearing and nudity on public programming as the rest of the world, Western world does, but you still have this culture that does promote violence just enough, not a ton more. I don't think most people I think in the world play Grand Theft Auto.
Education.
But like, yeah, there's this like, I think it comes along with maybe that idea of American exceptionalism and triumphalism, this idea that, it was won through violence and therefore violence is always the answer. But that's like that's where you get into a blurring of where things are good and not so good, because
it's not about violence though.
Exactly, it's not about
it's
violence.
about
What's it
having
about?
a good defense,
right? So
Well, sometimes a good offense is a good defense.
Right.
Now,
Like,
we've opened so many different conversations here, and I'd like to weave them all together. One thing I realized throughout my show and doing research for it was that there seems to be a thread of similarity, and Hideo Kojima noticed it, much like he notices everything because he's a genius, between the Japanese ninja and the American gunslinger. And it relates to this idea of finding a place outside of the establishment, or at least outside of the control of the kings or the local rulers, where you have self-governance and self-control. And the mythology around the gunslinger and the ninja is that it's won through criminality, war, deception, and, busting out your katana and throwing shurikens and shooting the other guy with the revolver and riding the horse into the sunset and all that shit that we're addicted to through the media and mythology. So I can appreciate that. Elon Musk says that we are a distillation of the spirit of exploration, that everyone here, we're all immigrants, but we're all immigrants that came here because we believed in a better life. And we left where we were, we left our traditions to go find it. And that's what brings us all together and gives us something in common. So when I hear Fox News be like, yeah, America's great because our cops are definitely not racist, or I hear over on the left where it's like, now listen, everybody, we know there's something wrong with white people and we have to pull the plug on everything. all the movies, all the culture, and rewrite history and rewrite everything. Otherwise, we're going to keep repeating all the same evils of capitalism. So, like, it all sounds a bit too crazy for me. And I think the thing that makes an American is the will to self-governance and the call to the pursuit of happiness, as vague and abstract as that is. And I don't think that's a dream that we should just dispense with. You know, that's my take on
That's
the matter
certainly not.
anyway.
But what if your ideal is just a fantasy?
Well, aren't they all? Because here's the thing. We merely survive our realities. We live through our fantasies. You know what I mean? I said it backwards, but that's what Robert Anton Wilson said, and he was right.
Yeah. What's more important than the story of the world, or the story you tell yourself in the world, right?
I really think it's important, though, to not get your hopes up.
sounds
I
sounds like someone who just got banned off a platform.
Yeah, but I was ideal, and I'm like, I didn't do anything, and I literally didn't do anything wrong. I was trying to protect myself in
You
case
fraternized.
No, I know, but it's like, but it was for something that was just an expression of speech. It wasn't anything like other people did something wrong, and I had to pay for it.
Yeah, no one
So,
should get
Somebody
be
just
getting
posted the
punished.
wrong Wojak, and now you have to suffer.
yeah.
No one should be getting punished for speech.
But I wanted to protect myself in case I wanted in case I wanted to travel and go to a protest. But, you know, that's fine. I'll figure out my own way. But at the same time, you know, them banning everybody at once is hindering other people's safety by doing that.
What do you mean by banning everybody at once?
Like, okay, on Discord, it's a server. So a server has multiple chat rooms in it. And then people can meet each other on the server and DM, or they can talk in public on the server about stuff. So I went to sleep at like 10 o'clock last night and woke up. Apparently, it happened overnight that this entire server got banned over a few users
Oh wow.
violating rules. And I saw there were a few mods on the server. It was like a 2-day-old server. There are a couple mods on it, or like not a couple, but you know what I mean. Like there was like maybe 10 or 15 of them for the
Yeah,
whole server.
I don't really know what a mod is.
The Jannies got ya.
A moderator,
Oh.
somebody who comes through the chat room and is like, "Oh, that's against the rules. You're banned, or you have a warning." You know, and I saw multiple people get banned for talking about like,
And those people
violently.
were supposedly,
you know, I saw them get banned while I was awake, and then when I went to sleep, apparently a bunch of other people were talking very violently and making
like inciting violence, like calls for violence.
no, they were um they were being violent in their speech, and
What do you
then
mean by that?
making plans with weapons
So
on a public server.
big difference in my
Maury.
mind. Yeah, that's crazy. But there's a big difference between, of course, violence in speech and using speech to plan violence, right? One's a crime, one isn't.
I mean, I wasn't aware. I didn't see anything.
Oh yeah, well
I'm
that's
just
what's crazy. Like,
speculating. I'm
you
only
were-
speculating.
you were like, yeah, it's almost like you went to a party and then you
It
left.
could have been a LARP, you know what
And
I'm
then
saying?
It's
But
like it sounds
it-
like you went to a party, then you went home, went to bed, and got woken up by the cops who had arrested everyone at the party, and now they're there for
Right.
you because you stopped by.
well, yeah, and I was like, and the only reason I was there is because I was trying to find somebody who had a good like a caravan or some camping equipment, so I don't get left out on the street in case the hotels get filled up where I'm going. And
You
now
were
I
looking for
can't. Now I'm
camping
not.
equipment, and now you're banned.
tell it to the FBI, Maury. Tell it to the FBI.
I mean, I don't even have a coat now, so it doesn't even matter. But
A coat? Is that what they call it now?
no, it's like the thing that you wear when you're cold.
Got it. Brr,
gloves.
it's cold.
You know,
Wink,
like
wink. The eagle has landed.
like some
Mari
gloves.
Sampson.
That sounds like leftist code for weapons to me.
Well, it could be, but that's what I'm saying is it could have been
food
that.
and clothing. Food and clothing. We all know that that's a code.
It doesn't matter what it was. The fact is I was trying to find a carpool, not even for myself, but more for my roommate, so he's not alone.
You know what's cool though? You should have just gone out in the street and asked somebody for their home. In fact, demanded it. You
I don't
need
want a
tent.
home.
You
I
can
already
just
pay for-
demand somebody's apartment. Now,
No,
that's what you
not-
should do.
There's no way. No, not.
If you have a big enough mob, you can do it.
That's not what I was trying to do.
Well,
I'm being silly. Mari
Anyway, it's just like there was like a small group of people doing this overnight, probably, and there were no mobs awake.
Mari, we will figure it out. Mari, we will figure it
I'm
out.
sorry. I'm just like I've
point
never
of the
been banned
story-
from anything before, and it's really upsetting.
oh,
Listen, the
yeah.
point of the story is it's making it difficult for us to record because that's where we record. So
Well, you
it's
asked.
okay. Well, I did ask. But don't you feel safer now?
No.
See, Zoom is much safer. All the servers are in China, so we know the U.S. government is protecting them.
No.
Yeah,
No.
Biden's got our back now. He's going to make sure China takes good care of us.
Well, they have the longest extant culture on Earth in between their calendars and their mythologies. So, I mean, it's not all bad.
Canada's owned by China mostly, even though we have the Huawei CFO in prison and they have a Canadian in prison and they want to swap, and we're like, nope. But we still have like a majority Chinese population, which is great for living. I loved growing up in an Asian dominated area. Great food, great cool manga, and all this other stuff. You know, I did date a couple people during my life who were Chinese. Once one turned out well, one turned out different. Didn't turn out well, and one thing that opened my eyes to is actually that they said, you know, I don't know why you think it's so great. They hate you. We'd go to restaurants and she'd translate what people were saying in the restaurant. She's like translating what people are saying about me, and it was like, I'm like, no, these people aren't all talking about me. They're like, yeah, you're here with me and you're white, and they think you're like a gross pig that I'm
They are so
clearly just using.
talking
I was like, what?
about you.
I was like, what? Really? She's like, yeah, that woman just called you a fat slob. I was like, what? And I stare at the woman and she's like glaring at me. I'm like, oh snap. I thought like every time they looked at me, they were like, oh, it's so great that we're all one human family and
Chinatown number
we're a
one.
multinational city, and that's great. There was a protest downtown the other day against the Uyghur concentration camps, because, you know, it's not a good thing that we have concentration camps full of failed Chinese white rappers. And the protest was very small, and there was hordes of
I feel
Asians
compelled to laugh,
walking
but I don't
past them.
fully understand what you just said.
I know. It's all right. You'll get it in replay.
Actual fuck.
Yeah, so the Uyghur concentration camps in China, you know about that, right? Like they're selling their organs and all of that.
No, I don't.
No.
Andrew, you guys are gonna get
Not
platformed.
white people, but other kinds.
Well, okay,
Perhaps.
yeah, no, I was joking. I was making a reference to the new Andrew Schultz special, which is hilarious. You should watch that. The Uyghurs are from northern Turkey, I believe, but they're Chinese Muslims, and they've been being put in concentration camps. Mulan was filmed partly on one of their concentration camps.
But it's not Uyghurs, right? That's
Yeah,
like
they're
what you call
Uyghurs is Uighers. And that's the name of this racial group of Muslim Chinese people, and they've been put in these re-education camps that dwarf the Nazi death camps by quite a bit. and they've been having their organs
Yes.
sold off, forced sterilization, all these horrors, things that we really should be like almost boots on the ground going to war with them about, because it's
I
so
had
atrocious.
no idea it was pronounced that way, but yes, this is
Uyghurs. Yeah. And I love the joke that makes it about Uyghurs, like white rappers. That's hilarious. I mean, you got to have a
You
bit
flip
of
me out,
Say
dude.
that.
You got to
flip
have a
me
bit of
out.
humor.
I thought
Oh,
you would just say Muslims, and I'm like, yes, Muslims are being killed there. Let's come on, you guys.
yeah.
World War
So
III.
there
Come on.
So there
let's
was a
fucking
protest
fly over
in
here.
Vancouver. There was a Vancouver protest against the Uyghur concentration camps with Uyghurs holding up banners and signs and stuff, and they were like getting just death stares from 90% of the people around them, who were all Chinese. And I went up there and started like talking to them, and was like, if it wasn't pouring rain, I'd stand with
I
you
feel
longer.
so sorry for Canada.
Why?
Because there's so many Chinese.
There's nothing wrong with having a lot of Chinese people. That's great. Like, it's great to have, like, Chinese people are awesome. I've really, but the problem is letting the Chinese government buy everything and control us, which is insane. We should not sell our natural resources to foreign countries that want to destroy us.
If they're angry at the protesters, don't you think that they're nationals of China instead of the United States or Canada?
Oh my God,
yeah,
you guys.
they're definitely the elite Chinese coming over here, but just because their country is like, a lot of them don't agree with what their country does, and when they have kids, and a lot of the Chinese in Vancouver are second and third generation Chinese now, and like, they're most of them are not fans of their government, just like most of us are not fans of our government. Our government's shit up here. Our government before the current government, Trudeau, was shit as well, and the same goes for you guys. I mean, like, you guys just had a somewhat shitty government. Before that, you had an even shittier one, and now you're probably going to have just a complete disaster. But I think most people.
Hey man, don't talk about my country that way.
But why,
sorry, bro?
But why would the Canadians or the Canadian Chinese give a stink eye to the protesters?
Because
protesting is a right, and it's a free speech right.
Because they want to be thought of well, and they don't want people pointing out that they're tacitly supporting concentration camps.
Well, if they have something to hide, then maybe they're going to act that way.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. It's so parallel to what happened in Nazi Germany. It's not even funny.
I just wish that there was more press on this. Like, for real.
That's what we all wish. Yeah, for real. Yeah. The fact that
I can't believe that Mulan credited it, and people like haven't like figured this out yet.
Well, a lot of people
Disney.
do know about. Well, Mulan did pay for it at the box office, or whatever you want to call it, quote unquote.
Well, they had to thank it in the credits.
Yeah, of course they did, and well, because they want to thank it.
And nobody really cared.
Yeah, Disney. You got to remember, downplayed John Boyega in Star Wars and took him off the poster or put him in the background because the Chinese government said, we don't want him in this movie because he's black.
They want to sell to China.
All right, slow down. You guys are just killing me here with things that I am afraid.
Pocket sand.
Oh my God. Down, dog. Down. You're kidding me about John Boyega, right?
No,
Can we pause and go into that?
They absolutely cut his scenes from Star Wars release in China because he's black, and black people are bad according to China.
They're unlucky.
And any people that aren't Chinese are bad according to the Chinese Communist Party.
Have you not seen the video?
For anyone listening to the show, listen.
That's a statement that they're very proud of.
Y'all are concerned about a lot of real life things, but because I am just a lowly podcaster, I'm concerned about one thing primarily right now that I want to get. It's this idea that we cannot let. I don't want to be associated with racism or racist ideology because I'm into conspiracy theories.
No, you're associated with those things because you're white, dude.
Hey, Luke.
It's a joke.
That's an interesting take on it.
It's not true at all.
Okay.
Can I? Frat or
What,
something.
Mari? What? Sure,
Frat or
go ahead.
RC.
Please.
RC.
Please. Did you see the video of it was like at the beginning of COVID, and then Chinese hotels, like hotel lobbies, were refusing, and also McDonald's. It was like specifically a McDonald's was refusing entrance to black people.
Yeah, that's not a surprise. Like I grew up in Vancouver,
What?
and there was so many restaurants that said white people weren't welcome. It wasn't even funny. I remember when I was
What?
9, I tried to go have lunch at a Chinese restaurant
Yeah.
in Richmond.
There's a Japanese
and my
restaurant
dad had
here
to
that
pick
only
me
lets
up.
one
I was
family in at
crying.
once. That's white.
My dad came to meet me at this Chinese restaurant. I was 9, 10 years old, and he was going to meet me there for lunch. And I was there after playing Street Fighter all day at the arcade. And he met me there for lunch. And I was crying in the lobby. And he's like, "What's wrong?" They're like, "He wants to eat here." And he's like, "What's wrong with that?" They were like, no white people, no white people, Chinese only. And my dad was like, "Okay, we're going." And we left. And I grew up there. Right.
There are
And
so
then,
many things I want to say.
yeah.
So many
Yeah,
things
but
I want
have
to
you-
say.
Okay.
Okay. So and
but-
hold on. In college,
but did you see
I-
the video?
no.
Did anyone see that video?
Which video?
It's a video of a Chinese McDonald's refusing entry into a building of black people.
I don't know
they
why this
thought-
surprises you. like,
Because
yeah,
they
I know
thought
the
they
video
were
you're
dirty
talking about.
with coronavirus or
Yeah,
something.
because they're black. That's what they think. This is not new stuff. This stuff has been going on in China since.
I just want to reiterate this for I know Luke
the
might
beginning.
cut this out. Look at him hold his head. He likes sushi too much.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about what goes on the Whole Rabbit podcast, because this is a simulcast of Magic Without Fear's Hermetic podcast and the Whole Rabbit. Shout out to the Whole Rabbit fans. I love you guys. And so there's going to be slightly two different versions between his and mine, and that's fine. We talk about different things. And one of the things I've been canceled on pretty much every platform forever, for years now. And so for me, the only purpose in talking publicly anymore is to be real. If you're not real, you're just part of the problem. And I love he's sweating and rubbing his head.
I know.
Like, oh God,
I
my
love
life's
it too.
over.
I wish you could see me. I'm just gritting wide. It's like at my work, even I'm in manufacturing. Do you know how happy I am for my job to stop buying Chinese products?
I don't know
we're moving
why
away
we
from
can't
it.
create jobs in North America by making things again. It really, I don't know if that's a talking point, but it's something that keeps coming up. Like, why?
We partnered with Canada and Mexico with our new products. So I'm really stoked to have it happening over here.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And we take the wood from Taiwan, I think, or Vietnam. But it's just like a nice wood product.
Did you know that we can actually be eating cloned animals right now and they don't have to tell us?
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
GMO products?
Yeah. All right, Luke, what do you want to talk about? I spent most of my
he's
time
crying literally now.
I spent most of my time prepping medieval Kabbalistic details and stuff about the Assyrian tree of life.
Go ahead.
So that's what I prepared
Go ahead.
for. The fact that Luke wanted to start off talking about 2020 and the world in politics is on him.
Fucked.
He sent me a preliminary outline of this podcast, and that was at the top. So
I do. I
following
feel
the
like
plan.
I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my words in edgewise here, though, because
Okay.
I do have some fucking interesting ideas about communism, about free speech, and all the rest of it. And if since I'm crying because we're 35 minutes in. I have no idea what I'm allowed to share now on YouTube or on the podcast. And to be frank, I don't want to go down with the ship of these conspiracy theorists. They just are fucking racist and they just want to preserve their racist culture. And so here's what I want to get it. Let me play devil's advocate, because that's what I fucking do best.
I'm full of shit.
I went to college, okay? And before I even say this, as a conspiracy theorist podcaster, if you've been to my Discord through no effort of my own, you can see it as a roster of very colorful, diverse people. Like I said, through no effort of my own. It just turned out that way. So I don't really think that I'm the epicenter of racism and racist thinking. So now that I've said that,
Sorry.
I did go to college, and I feel a little sad that my Discord hasn't been targeted to be deleted because of crazy edgy ideas. Because now I feel a bit tame, Mari. Thanks, but no, really,
Well,
I went to college and learned how to hate America. I did that, and while I was
me
there,
too.
I took a bunch of classes on communication because I'm an idiot and should have done biology or chemistry or something useful for the world, but I did communication. So while I was in communication, I learned a lot about this lady named Jane Elliott, and she taught me a lot about racism. One fascinating thing they did was pass out this test, and it was just basically stuff that like Black people would know, like what are collard greens, you know what I mean, stuff like that. And of course,
But
that's
they
the one
are.
question I can actually remember, right? Someone from Georgia might know.
They're delicious.
So the whole point is that all the white people in class got very bad scores, and all the Black people got great scores. And then the teacher can kind of run this little social experiment and be like, you see, it's because the white people don't pay attention. You know what I mean? And you can kind of take this to like a higher and a higher level, and you can really sort of suss out that, yeah, we do kind of live in a culture where we just are fed these mythologies and we have to regurgitate them no matter how true they are or not. And we do live in a country where we have a systemic racism problem in our in our justice system, the courts, the prisons, the police. And it's something that it really grinds my teeth when I hear Fox News saying stuff like, oh, these people on the left, they're trying to promote this idea that there's something wrong with the police. Well, it's like, yeah, minorities have known, especially like inner city Black folk have known for a long time. The police in some instances can be fucking racist and violent and unfair. They can, like, if I married a Black woman and I had a kid with her, I'd have to give my mulatto kid the talk, like, hey man, you keep your hands on the wheel, they could kill you. You know what I mean? Like, for no reason. And I hear this stuff on Fox News, and I can pull it up on my phone in 5 seconds. You type the Executioners LA gang, and what is it? It's a gang inside the LAPD that you get a new tattoo or whatever every time you execute another minority. So am I gonna sit here and pretend that there's no such thing as systemic racism in America, or that we pass along imperialistic ideas, or that we've reached a point in our civilization where we have to seriously question what capitalism and like nationalism even means anymore in a world that's totally interconnected? But in that same way that I want to be critical of my country and of my culture, I don't want to give it up, and I don't want to throw it out, and I don't want to have to go back and see what's wrong. I don't want to have to give up Star Wars. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't have to. What were we talking about, Star Wars? Yeah, why did they wrote out John Boyega supposedly?
No, not entirely. They minimized him because of his race.
And you know what? Honestly, she
this-
did hook up with the white, with the white guy at the end, who all their actual interactions together were extremely abusive. Between, they just tried to kill each other the whole time, and then
none of that made any sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of like all the Black people who watch that is like, oh, so the girl just is gonna pick like the toxic, unhelpful, vengeful mama's boy white guy, and like the helpful, Black person who's trying to like get his life together and maybe even help the revolution, like just gets a hug at the end. It is kind of fucked up. I mean, we all know Adam Driver like carried that movie, so I'm gonna give it to him. You know what I mean? It's fine.
My mom actually hates him in that movie. She likes him as an actor, but thinks he was wrong for that role entirely. I don't get it. I thought he was fine. It's just the everything. The whole thing was obviously such a astounding disaster. I'm so honestly, with the recent episode of Mandalorian, I'm like, oh my god, fucking thank God Jon Favreau has done his best to sort of save my childhood, because Star Wars was sort of ripped away from us in a brutal fashion by the whole Kathleen Kennedy movement, which it's so hypocritical, right? Because she's all social justice warrior, woman power and racial equality, then she minimizes John Boyega at the request of China. So she's just a lying piece of shit, really.
That's hypocritical, and
Yeah,
that's what.
she's just a mean white woman.
Yeah, an entitled one who thinks that her worldview is the most important, and if you don't agree with it, then you should be canceled and destroyed.
Of course, what she wants isn't that unfamiliar to us. It is the same thing as white patriarchalism has had for most of recorded history, in which we're in charge, we're right, and we're inconsistent. That's the plan. Tough luck, motherfucker. Like, do your job for free. So like there's a movement within feminism to get exactly what patriarchalism used to have. The problem is that's not where we want to go. Like there's
That's
the
more or less my take on things as well.
the resurgence of feminism as women first over men, as opposed to egalitarianism and humanitarianism, which is what it was meant to be and was for the longest time.
Amen.
That's what we need. That's what we need. I don't know why no one is talking about humanitarianism anymore. I don't get it. Why can't we talk about egalitarianism? Why do people have to preface what they say as speaking as a white male, or speaking as a black woman, or speaking as a Latino man?
Racist.
What? Like, as soon as you say I'm speaking as a,
That's racist.
That's the racist thing. That's this ideological thing. You're saying what I'm about to say matters either more or less, or only in the context of how I'm identified.
That person is the one dividing the situation. That is the person putting the boundaries in the conversation so that you can't relate to somebody that looks different than you, which is wrong and it's immoral.
Yeah, I mean, it's just no surprise that the powers that be want to separate us like this. It's much easier to divide and conquer.
Correct. If they don't have a giant mass of people joining arms, if there's something that they can get that everyone's like, oh well, I kind of I don't agree with that, and you know what, you're wrong. It's like, if they can get people to do that, then they have it made. They can control us. They just put out propaganda on either side, and it makes people pull away from each other and separate. Also with this virus, sorry, I don't want to like mess up anybody's like monetization, but
I'm not going to monetize this video, but can you just like, speak plain, but
I'm just saying, like, with the virus, everybody's separated from each other already. Even if you're already like agreeing with somebody, like I can't see my mom because she's sick. Like I can't go visit people. I can't talk to them. So it's a bad environment all around. And I think like if they make it a stigma to talk to somebody about these issues, it makes it worse.
What do you think, Luke?
I believe it's a bad idea that we have conversations we ought not to have, in topics and things that are should no longer be discussed. I appreciate that minorities always need to be defended against from the larger democratic mechanism, because they can basically always be bludgeoned by the larger group. So I do believe that in general, minorities of all types need to be protected, but I also believe that freedom of speech is one of the things that we are protecting, and one of the rights that we are trying to maintain for everyone simultaneously, regardless of what they are. And that I believe we should live in a civilization that is expected to take these rights and privileges and carry them with pride. And the way they should do that is by carrying them with responsibility, and by making, like, we're all trusted to drive cars. You know what I mean? Like, we take our lives into our own hands because we're a civilization that is advanced enough for everyone to have a fucking car. you know what I mean? So we're all expected to take our lives into our hands in that regard. I believe we should be expected to have that same responsibility when it comes to our speech. And I don't think anyone should just be, I guess people can always choose to tune out. That's the other thing. It is somebody's free speech to cancel somebody. You know what I mean?
And there's different
it gets
laws about
complicated.
driving. There's different laws about driving and like what to expect socially while driving.
I'm rambling. I guess here's the thing is like, I believe in self-governance. I believe in freedom of speech, almost as like in a religious sense. But I do appreciate, but even like, okay.
But what if there's not a standard for everyone to go by? That's what I advocate for is like, yes, you have your own freedom.
Yeah,
but everybody's got to adhere to the standard of the area that they that they live in. I'm sorry, but most like somebody wrecked into me because they don't understand traffic laws here. So I've had an experience like that.
But we have a system to deal with it. And I wanted to say another thing about feminism.
Well, I had to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I want to say another thing about feminism that you struck me with, hit a chord. Yeah, I think feminism is morphing basically into what I like to call the patriarchy and drag.
Let him finish.
Okay. No, what we call feminism today is a lot like the patriarchy and drag. It's this idea that you must think this way. You must be attracted to this thing. This is now your new thing. You know what I mean? Like you.
It's so bad.
It's this idea that men should be more like women, maybe, and that women should be, you know, more like men. But like it was my understanding that feminism is more like we should value the woman who gives her life to stay home and take care of the kid and cook the food, and we should give her an equal station with the man, and she should have an equal station in terms of decision making, and she should be paid the same amount as a man, and women should be treated equal as men in the space program, in engineering, in construction, in the military. And this goes for gays and, you know, all minorities too. Like if you're gay, you can be a Marine. If you are a transvestite, you can be an astronaut. That's what it means to me. But trying to like equalize the score and like get revenge on like this race or this class based on based on like a historical narrative that
you saw people try and do that and fuck up royally with the trying to cancel Dungeons and Dragons when a bunch of people were saying that orcs are racist.
It's not.
Did you hear about that, Luke?
Yeah.
Let's talk about why are orcs racist?
They said that a lot of people spoke out. I believe it was on Twitter. I don't know. I just caught everything afterwards from various news sources. And then I looked into it. And so the reason that they were saying orcs are racist is because they're violent, aggressive, criminal, brutish, and mean. And since those are the qualities of Black people, they are therefore characterizations. What's the word? That they are caricatures of Black people because they have all the same attributes as Black people. Those people didn't realize that that's
racist.
Right.
You think? It's
exactly.
Like, you're saying that because these monsters that are designed as cannon fodder in Dungeons and Dragons are all these evil traits, and that you see those traits as being in your mind, that's what Black people are. Therefore, orcs are racist, not therefore you are racist. So we see this faulty logic happening a lot these days, and people are perpetuating it because it's very, very seductive. It's very much like the dark side.
Okay, I have some racist ideas that dovetail with BLM and the left. I'm kind of curious what you guys have to think about. Anything about it?
As a white cis male, I care greatly, even more so, about what you think.
Okay, excellent.
I won't even use those words.
How am I going to use this audio for the internet now? You guys are fucking
I'm a Slavic woman.
Fucked me so hard, you guys. Jesus, I'm just going to make this like not for kids, whatever. Oh man, not safe for work.
I'm a
Where the fuck was
Slavic
I?
biological woman.
This is this follow-up to an episode we did earlier on your podcast and mine which you called Triple X on yours. So for those who want to hear that, go check out Triple X. And the point of this one was to call it the eXXXening. So it's even more than Triple X. It is the Triple X coming to town to eat
Where's
you
the
alive.
dick?
And that's what's happening. Oh God.
I would feel much better if we just pulled out our dicks and talked about that, because that's allowed.
Well, it is probably time. It is probably time to move on to some of the other things you wanted to talk about.
Holy shit! No, I wanted to make a point about something, and
make a point, baby.
All the things you're talking about.
Well, you ought to, because I have to take a break.
Okay, well, I have to pee.
Say what you needed to say, or go pee, whatever. Because the next point, we have covered the first few of your topics.
Oh no, I said I built it up. I can't just build it up and not let it out, because listeners hate that shit. That's what she said. That's what it. No, I do that as a fap thing.
Luke.
Yeah.
Time out.
No, I want to say some stuff that.
Yeah, Mari, you can go to the bathroom.
We're gonna time out, and you tell me.
She needs to hear it though.
You need to tell me where we're at.
I'm gonna lose all my listeners. This is what's gonna happen.
You want to ask questions.
What are we talking about?
I'm gonna put warnings on this. I'm gonna be like, look,
you need to
Luke,
say what you were gonna say.
I have to understand. Where are you at in the script?
Nowhere.
Are you gonna ask anything?
Yeah, you can ask all that stuff on there. That's fine. But I wanted to say the thing that I'm just teasing it too much. Go pee, and I'll say.
Can we have a no girl zone?
No, that's so.
You guys can talk, and I'm like not here. It's like so risque, so risque.
Do you see what Luke and I look like? Everything's a no girl zone when we're involved.
Oh, bitch! Come on.
Self burn.
I'll take it.
I don't even.
No, you're a pretty motherfucker.
He got where I was coming from.
I want to hear what your point was that you wanted to make.
Just hold your pee for a minute, Mari. My point is this. I think there is something to be said where if we're just going to say America's great, America's this amazing thing. A big part of that is because of our exports, right? And our culture. And God damn it, if funk and blues were not the greatest pieces of music ever written in history by Black people in this country, and we should be proud of it as Americans. I
agree.
And that the founding
fathers. Not if you're white.
Shut up, Mari. There's no such thing as white. That's the other thing. I'm gonna go back to that. There's no fucking such thing as white.
Shut up, Luke. That's fucking that's racist.
To quote a fellow Vancouverite, Mr. Deadpool, we're all pink on the inside.
I know, right?
You are.
Oh,
just a little purple.
Go ahead and tell him that.
You keep cutting off his train of thought.
Just smile, Mari. Just look there. Just sit there and be great.
Oh, believe me, I am every day.
You are to be seen and not heard, Mari. Put on your camera and mute the microphone.
I ain't putting my camera on. Fuck you.
No, seriously, Luke says that to his aunt in the Christmas special of Star Wars, and it does stand out as kind of like, ew, that is toxic.
How about you guys talk about Star Wars for 10 minutes and I'm gonna be gone.
Anyway, sure. I think Wakanda is not far off. It just needs to be like maybe a little more like, it needs to be in America, obviously, and a little more multicultural maybe. But that's basically the idea, because I think the founding fathers had ancient Egypt in mind when they created America. And yeah, you can say like, well, they were definitely being like racist white imperial fucks by owning slaves and, trying to piggyback off ancient African magic and still be racist, but at the same time, deep down inside, they knew that the wisdom of this world and the spiritual egregore of self-governance and self-kingship went back spiritually to the land of Kemet and Africa and ancient Egypt. And that's why they named things the way they did. And they knew through their study of Greek culture that the Greeks did this as well. The Greeks likened themselves to that ancient race that fought the Atlanteans. And they gained this knowledge through the priests of Egypt. And so the idea of creating a government that's based on eternal laws and eternal wisdom, it's a meme from Africa and from Egypt. And we incorporated that into the symbolism of our country, into Masonry. And so when Fox News says, oh, well, America's founded on evangelical Christian values, or the left says like, well, we're so inherently racist, we need to just dispense with American culture entirely, they're both wrong.
No shit.
The truth is that our culture goes back to ancient Egypt. And we do have a spiritual lineage that connects us there. And so it's part of the mystery of being an American. And it just happens to be that our greatest cultural export was created by Black musicians. And these Black musicians also maybe just happen to be the greatest musicians that have ever lived. And if you go back and I've actually lost listeners because I've said this before, because they think that's a racist perspective for some reason, but you can't arch. What are you going to do? Like, and I have seen some far left bloggers that are like, white people, it goes to like classical music, and then like it shows like Black people, it's got like jazz and it and like blues and funk and hip hop and reggae, and it just is like this huge tree of all these different types of music, and we're just over here just rocking away to Bach, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's kind of fucking true, man. So
yeah. I always love that quote from the White House drug czar in, I think it was 1955. I put the quote on the card game I designed 13 years ago called Kill the Hippies. And the quote says, marijuana is a drug primarily used by musicians. And when I say musicians, I don't mean the good sort of musician, but the jazz type.
Oh my God.
Right. And so in 55, that's what this white guy obviously said, who worked at the White House, as the drug czar. And what's funny today now is if you like go home to mom and be like, Mom, I found the love of my life, we're going to get married. Oh, what's he or she do? Oh, they're a musician. And instantly the reaction is going to be like, whoa, shit, you see someone in an orchestra making $1,000 a month or something, or busking. But then if they're like, oh, no, a jazz musician, now it's like, oh shit, you've met a really talented human being. Right. So it's
yes, absolutely
flipped in the last 50 to 70 years. Now if you're a jazz musician, you're fucking good. Otherwise you're just learning jazz.
Right.
Yeah, there's like only one instrument I play where I can sit in with jazz players. Only one instrument. I play a bunch of instruments, but there's only one where I can hold it together and actually add something to a jazz ensemble. And even then, it's always going to be a challenge, because those people, that musical form defines itself by pushing the boundaries. That's what it is. It's here's the number, let's play it through. And then the second time, let's ornament. Then the third time, let's improvise. And then the fourth time, let's fuck the shit out of it. Let's see how hard we can fuck it until it breaks.
Well, my favorite rock bands have jazz DNA, and that would be Tool.
Yeah.
Their drummer basically volunteered because he felt bad. DNA. Yeah, he's a Danny Carey. Danny Carey, he hits up the jazz clubs in my hometown, at least before the lockdown times.
Really?
And in the before times, before Tool, like I said, he only played with them because he felt bad for them. He was all just playing jazz. And
he felt bad because they couldn't get a drummer.
Right.
They weren't good enough to really need him. He was too good for them, but they sort of caught up.
Exactly.
Boy, did they ever catch up.
And so much of Tool is borrowed from that jazz DNA. And then blues, I think everyone owes their left nut to Robert Johnson. And then we know that all those great Led
Especially,
Zeppelin
like-
tracks were just, you know, old folk songs. And like one of my favorite folk songs, Stack O Lee. He's also called Stagger Lee or Stag O Lee. Just go on Spotify. There's hundreds of songs, and this is an old folk song that
Yeah.
goes back to. You know what I just learned? I want you to want me. I need you to need. That's like one of those old folk songs from back in the day. And so I think. Anyway, long story short, yeah, I think America should be proud of its Black culture and its Black folks, and I think that is something that we need to embrace. But at the same time, I don't think we should get rid of 4chan, even though it seems to be this.
I don't know what 4chan is, but I do agree that America's,
Mm.
you know, produced a lot of great things for this world, and it will continue to do so, and that's not going to change anytime soon. You know, from blues to jazz to Marvel Comics to adrenochrome, America's produced many things. I can't help it. My country boner, it won't go down, it won't go down, it won't go
Just
down.
give me the maple
My
syrup, dang it.
A boner won't go down. Do you know what
No,
that's from?
you
Lee?
said yeah. That's
My
supposed to.
boner, my boner won't go down. It won't
And
go
now
down.
you can't have any maple syrup. You have to have the corn syrup, fake crap that most people
No.
like, because most people like fake crap. So
no,
you know what
the
I like
Canadians,
to do?
you understand, the Canadians will always have their own maple syrup because they understand that they produce the best maple syrup and also animation in the
You know what
world.
this is? What I'm holding, Luke?
It's an
We'll talk
album.
about Canadian maple syrup in a second. What I'm holding here, Luke, is one of 3,500 copies made. It's the Pussifer vinyl of their Live at the Eight Ball Saloon from, excuse me. And so if you remember that first drop that Pussifer did of Country Boner with
Yeah.
them in wigs, this is the recording, and
That's
I
the
can't believe
one,
I
okay.
actually found it. I can't believe it actually exists. I didn't know that it was actually a recording that was made, much less put on vinyl in 3,500 copies. It's still in the plastic that I've got.
Luke, it's too powerful.
Here's another one.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. And
I
of
had a
course,
crazy idea.
I only have
y'all.
a few vinyls left from my vinyl collection that was mostly robbed, but yeah. And of course,
Powerful.
then I have Donkey Punch the Night by Pussifer.
Oh,
There we
I
go.
love that one.
Can't.
Oh, and of course, Swollen Members signed by the members. That's a Vancouver shout out.
Ooh. Hey, I'm gonna pause my recording and go pee. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna
So
go pee. This is the
wicked.
first hour.
I'll
Now
pause
that
again. I'll pause
we've
as well.
definitely destroyed the whole rabbit, but let's continue because I'll find a way to make it work.
Dude, those albums were so dope.
Thank
You
you.
guys, you talking about the Chinese? I'm literally might have to edit some of that. I really want to keep my show. Like,
I'm sorry.
Dude, you're
it's
talking to
just
someone
like,
who lives in Vancouver.
Oh,
Yeah, that is
Okay,
a
off the
racist
air.
nickname for Vancouver that people have been using my whole life. But
Dude,
I
off
think
the air.
I think that stuff is gross personally. Yeah, I mean this is on mine, but that stuff is gross because you know the problem with racism is when you start acting and thinking about the group as a whole. Like it has nothing to do with saying, oh, this country's doing fucked up shit and we should stop it. That's not racist, right? You know?
Well, Alex Jones is intelligent enough to be like to refer to that as Chi-Com, and then Joe Rogan is like, "What? Why do you keep saying that?" He's like, "The Chinese Communist Party. I have nothing against the
It's
Chinese."
Chi-Com.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Joe Rogan.
that's how I want to
Joe
that's how I
Rogan.
want to keep it on my show,
wanna
because
make sure
you don't know
you
that
understand.
the Chinese will spit in your soup because they've been
Yeah.
treated unfairly in this country their whole lives. And
Exactly.
at the end of the day, a Chinese person and a fucking white person are pink on the inside, like you said. And
Joe Rogan. I want to make sure you understand. Joe Rogan. You gotta understand.
so I'm gonna go pee and then we'll do the second
It's-
hour. I love you, Mari. I'll
It's
be right
the
back.
Chi-Com. It's the Chi-Com, and they're coming after
I
us.
love you, Mari.
But I
We'll
understand.
be right back. Okay,
Okay.
we're back. We're back on Magic
Okay,
Without Fear.
I'm gonna oh, we're back.
Simulcasting.
Sorry.
I am. You can record at your will, Mr. Madrid. Snazzy glasses.
Ave Babylon, Sophia to you as well, sir.
Hail Sophia.
Hail Sophia. So the first time we met was when I was going through what Philip K. Dick would call an enthusiasmos. I had to look up what that meant, but it basically means it's like when a Christian finds Jesus Christ and they know that deep down inside that they've been saved, and it feels like they're walking on air, like they're on cloud nine for like the next 3 months until something really bad happens, and then they're like, oh, now I have to use my faith to get over it. But like that happened to me. I had an experience with Sophia, and it wasn't long after that you reached out to me, and I had a chance to, well, I was still crazy and in loss of my ego, to kind of spout it all out and get it on recording. And it was very embarrassing. It caused a lot of heat to come after me, and it was an intense experience. But I would love to talk a little bit more about it now, because at the time I was just experimenting with thelemic ideas and thelemic magic. And we mentioned right before we started recording that you like to joke about Thelemites, and you kind of see them more like Darth Vader and maybe even the Sith, and then you see the Golden Dawn a bit more like the Jedi. I want to talk about that as a baby Thelemite, and as you know, and I wanted to rep my Thelema bros and my Thelema sisters out there, because sometimes they even listen to the show, and I think I'm grateful for them. So let's get into that. Why you gotta say Thelema is kind of dark? Like where do we begin here? Why Sophia, not Babylon? Are they the same person? Are they different? Where do we begin?
I'm definitely not the person to explain the thelemic religious idea of Babylon, since I know very little about the religion of Thelema. And I certainly love your characterization that you just shared with us. I think it's hilarious and awesome. I certainly don't see Thelema like the Sith or Darth Vader and the G like Jedi. I mean, I mean, it's interesting because they can come off in certain ways like that. I mean, from my understanding, there's no oaths in Thelema that prevent you from doing, say, healing magic for someone without their permission. In my understanding, the gray areas of magic where you're doing good magic for someone else, or even maybe bad, I don't know. Again, someone someone in Thelema can correct or adjust what I know. But
well, Crowley would say you have no right to do anything but your true will.
Right. So if it's your true will to curse someone, he might say, go ahead and curse them. But so I believe in thelemic and AA systems of practice, there's less stringent requirements about the magic you do or rituals that you would do to affect another person. Whereas in Golden Dawn, you absolutely, at the very first stage, the first thing you do is take a vow preventing you from ever doing magic on other people against their will, without their permission, including healing for the most part. And so that does set up a very distinct definition of a difference between the two. The other thing that's more important, I think, to understand is that while Thelema is a religion, Crowley is its saint, as Lon Milo keeps telling us over and over so that we get it into our heads. And then there's the second order of their Argenteum Astrum for magical training and stuff.
He is the prophet.
Religious.
He is the master Therion. He is the great beast. Well, okay,
right.
Maybe I'm taking.
Whereas the Golden Dawn is a non-religious organization that you can have any religion you want when you join, and part of the neophyte vow is that you never look down on or desecrate what is sacred in another's eyes, and that's something I very much hold to. So there are different things. Golden Dawn's a school of magic that you enter and then graduate from, and then you're done. And Thelema is a lifelong fraternal organization, of which the OTO is a major part. Although you can be a Thelemite without being in the OTO, but all OTO people are Thelemic. That's how it was explained to me by
I think a Thelemite would be. I think a Thelemite would say that Thelema is a religion, the OTO is what, a teaching organization, and then the AA is a testing organization. I think that's what they would say.
No,
I'd say they because I'm an
the
idiot.
AA is a magical school and tradition that trains you as well as leads into the Ecclesia Gnostic Catholica, and that's where you really got to understand the AA and the OTO in comparison with the Golden Dawn and all the other orders out there, because pretty much all of them within the Western mysteries all take you to a final point, and that final point is almost always, without exception, Rosicrucianism,
Well,
based
my
on
thing,
Kabbalistic Gnostic philosophy.
Okay.
That's what they all are, almost without exception. That includes Freemasonry, includes Martinism, includes almost all those organizations. They
Now,
all
does
are meant
that
to take you
mean
to the Mount of Abbey Agnes, and where Christian Rosenkreuz is buried, and you're ceremonially reborn like Osiris or Jesus, doesn't matter which you prefer. You're reborn into that place of true knowledge of your higher self. And what that means is that's the starting point, of course.
yeah, that's the outer order, right? You gain knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel.
Well, that's not
And you explained
a
it.
thing to do with the orders, like outer or inner order. That's a little bit different.
Well, I mean, assuming that what you just described is reaching 5 = 6, or the top of the mountain, so to speak.
What
I've
Steiner
heard
would
it
call the
described that way.
solar initiation. It's what Rudolf Steiner would call the solar initiation. I mean, that's where so you see it in the Assyrian tree of life, which is we now know is actually the roots of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which again, remember, we don't have Kabbalistic documents until the 10th century. So Kabbalah in its written form is only 1,000 years old, but we now have evidence of it appearing as early as the 1st century. And that being a version that may most likely have come out of a version of the Assyrian tree of life. Why did Assyria choose the tree of life, or a tree, as its symbol for the universe and its national emblem? Well, that's very interesting. And what's really interesting is they situate the throne of the divine in the middle of it. And that's what you see in Golden Dawn theology, is you see this idea of entering Tiferet, entering beauty, the sphere of beauty, the messianic sphere, being reborn as Osiris, and taking your place on that throne so that you can better be the intermediary for your own higher self. And in the process, divinize through theosis and elevate yourself through the constant cyclical alchemical process of turning lead into gold, the base elements of your nature into divine elements of your nature, leaving the false self to the true self.
Now, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus by saying you were speaking ill of Thelema, but my joke
Oh, I love
has some
talking shit about
intellectual
Thelema.
import. Okay, well, that's fine. But like I said, the joke
And
had some meaning
Thelema
to
loves
it.
me talking shit about them. And
I'm
they
sure they
talk shit
do.
about us. I was just talking with one of the top Thelemites in the OTO, and they were like telling me how much they love pissing off GD people. And I was like, yeah, me too. We all love it. We all got a joke about these things. We need humor, man. Like shit.
So you know how Mathers and Crowley got into this whole like Scottish aesthetic, and they gave themselves like Scottish names, and they wore the kilts, and they got into all that stuff?
Well, Crowley probably got into it because Mathers was into it. And it was actually very common and popular in Victorian England. That was just a cultural trend that was going on.
So like the term banshee, when
That's
you see
Irish. Yeah.
okay, I don't know what I'm talking
It
about, but
means,
it's Gaelic. It's the whole
yeah.
Celtic Gaelic part of the universe.
Well, it's Scottish as well, because Scottish is a derivation of Irish. But ban means woman, and she means fairy. So it's a female fairy. But the banshee became a specific thing. And there was a banshee up on the hills above
Okay,
where I lived in Belfast that's quite famous. People hear it wailing all the time.
so okay, how do you spell the she? How do you spell that?
Sidhe. But the I
Which
has
is
a
kind of
fada.
which is kind of like the word for like powers
Yeah.
in Hindu mythology, right? Siddhi,
Yeah.
right?
Well, if you're into that, how the Irish civilization conspiracy theory, dude, then you're going to loosely equivocate words like that together. But the Irish word she comes from Old Irish and often is also spelt just si with a fada, because the dh
I also
was
saw
a
it.
d with a dot. Yeah, si. And it comes from an old word for a hill. And that the
Yes.
reason is because when the Tuatha Danann were chased out of Ireland by the Milesian invasion, the deal was they went under the hills, under the She, and thus became the gods under the hill. Now, going under the She, under the hills, is also synonymous with going to Tirnanog, right? So, like, whether you go to Tirnanog or under the She, it's sort of the same thing. Maybe the entrance under the hill takes you to Tirnanog. Who knows? Either way, in
Or a
Irish culture,
mentee, or a
the way
mentee.
you access it, here's the fun part: the way you access that realm in Ireland is by going to Donegal and picking the magic puka hats, the hat of the shape-shifting fairy, and eating those mushrooms and entering into the She.
And from what little I know, the doorways to these She are facing the west or the setting sun. And this has a correlation with Osiris and the ancient notion of the sun going into the underworld when it dies, and the initiation of the sun at midnight, or the sun in the darkness, as a primordial initiation, basically. And what I was getting at with the spelling is I've seen it spelled Sith. So basically, I was making a joke that, much like in Star Wars, how the most powerful sorcerers with the cities and the abilities and they liken themselves also to an ancient mythological race of elder beings called the Sith. And I was wondering if George Lucas maybe tapped into something there, because it's true. The Phelamite founders thought they were Sith. I thought that was really cool. So anyway, that was my
Well,
joke,
also,
my lame joke.
Patrick Rothfuss uses that before even Lucas in his Name of the Wind book, which was published after Lucas used the word Sith, but had the scythe, which are a form of fairies in The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Anyway, it's very tempting to loosely equivocate words that look similar, but like the Indian word city definitely doesn't relate to the Irish word she, because the only reason you have like the D then with the H added on is a recent innovation to take away the shevu, which was a dot over the consonant in Irish, which would soften the consonant. So the consonant would have most of the time been pronounced like an H, she, SIE, it was only in the 20th century they started adding H's after that and that's where the word has a very visual similarity to the word city. Now, if there's any Irish linguistic scholars that want to fill that out, because I don't know Old Irish or Middle High Irish at all, but it's definitely a hobby of mine to look into that stuff.
Well, Mr. Smart Guy, in Star Wars, it's actually impossible to mispronunciate a name. That's why it's perfectly acceptable to say Han Solo or Han Solo, or however you can, Solo. You could say it however you want. So there.
Hand shot first.
He did.
All right. Yeah, no, I think it's great to elucidate the differences between OTO, AA, Thelema, and other Hermetic schools, just so people understand what they're getting into, and find the right home for themselves. So, like these days, Golden Dawn orders are allowing more Thelemites into their orders now, which wasn't very common back in my day, because they thought that the OTO was an opposing order of magic teaching magic in a different way. A lot of Golden Dawn people didn't realize that the OTO didn't really have a formal structure for teaching magic, which is why I ended up teaching at an Oasis, because they're like, we'd love to learn what you teach, because we don't have that. And I mean, they do in the AA, but it's done differently. And so the more we can learn from each other as far as magical practice goes, I mean, Hermeticists really need to build bridges and learn from each other rather than nitpick about a bunch of tedious shit and religious stuff that doesn't matter. So the thing is, if a Thelemite or an OTO person learning in the Golden Dawn, they can't talk about Crowley all the time. That would be the same as having a Mormon member talking about the Mormon Jesus, or anyone talking about their religion, say, oh, that's like in my religion. It's like, keep your religion out of this. You're studying Western Hermeticism, which, while it blends a lot of ideas and mythopoetics from world religions, it's not a religion. You're here to learn how to do ritual work good and well, sometimes both. Cheers.
So as someone who
I see the
wouldn't
wheels spinning.
identify as a Thelemite, do you subscribe to this idea that we're in a new aeon, or that there was a changing of the guard around that time period? Or what does your quote unquote non-religious hermetic teaching say about this?
Okay, so because you asked, the idea of aeons, like, is not a strange idea, because I was raised in the idea that we're either entering into the age of Aquarius, or if you're into sidereal Jyotish astrology, entering into the age of Capricorn, whatever. It's definitely a Saturnine age. That's one thing we can all agree on. But and here's a big but. The idea that we are entering into the age of Horus, from what my reading of Aleister Crowley's autohagiography, I reread it, parts of it, a lot of it recently, when I was in the fire evacuations, as you recall, twice. I got to experience mass fire evacuations from where I lived in California, and I got a copy of the hagiography and looked at it as an adult, because last time I read it I was 13, and I was mostly amazed that this dude was talking about, like, sex and fucking people over so much and doing crazy stuff, and I was just like, whoa, human beings are crazy. That's what a 13-year-old reaction. But as an adult, looking at what Crowley wrote in his mid-40s for his autobiography, I was very struck by a lot of things, like mainly his introspection and his self-awareness was very shocking and admirable to see. But he mentions about why he thought it was going into the age of Horus. But then I was looking at others, comparing it to other things, like points made by Dion Fortune and a bunch of other contemporaries and Egyptologists, who showed that the Aeon of Horus actually already happened. So Crowley, now, if you go by Dion Fortune's methodology, and when you get a scrying or a contact with a spirit guide, you compare it to something in the world, you test it out. That's testing. You wanted to talk about testing too. If you go test it out and you find out it's wrong according to our history, then that would discredit the thing. So technically, Ayahuasca, and again, I bow to Thelemic scholars who might know the details of this more, but if Ayahuasca, this spirit, was saying we're entering age of Horus, and then you go look at Egyptian history and you see they already had the age of Horus, wouldn't that mean, by Dion Fortune's logic, that Crowley's connection with Ayahuasca was not authentic? It was not a real spirit connection, but something within his own microcosm? I don't know. It's a question. Because if Egypt does say what age we're entering, and it's not the age of Horus, so that's curious to me. But if people want to believe in going into a new aeon, or think in those dispensationalist sort of terms, that we go from age to age and these ages are governed by certain forces, they're welcome to think that way. I don't find that way of thinking incredibly useful in my own life, in my own practice personally. And that's why one of the many reasons why Theleme has never appealed to me as a religion. I'm much more happy being a bland Episcopalian. Go to church on Sundays, do ritual work the rest of the week. Amen. Though I don't
Now,
go to
I
church
think
Sundays.
it. Here's what I'll say about Aleister Crowley and Thelema and how it relates back to Hermeticism and all that. He felt that what he was doing was upgrading something into the modern era and streamlining it and making it more potent, something that was more in alignment with how the world actually is. And it's funny that you said that, well, because of Egyptology, we've learned that the Aeon of Horus has already come, so on and so forth. Well, interestingly, while they were on their honeymoon, Aleister Crowley and Rose Edith Kelly, they went out hunting fox bats, right, in their little boat. And they snuck down underneath, or a whole bunch were perched underneath the tree, and Crowley let off a shot or two, and one landed right in Rose Edith Kelly's hair, and it was flapping around, and it really spoiled the mood, right? And it was later that night, Crowley writes in his journals that he witnessed the most profound case of obsession, or what we might call possession, that he had ever seen. And it wasn't long after that they were in Cairo, which also means, I believe, Mars, or it's a word that relates to Martian energy. Anyway, they're doing he's trying to impress his wife, Mr. Crowley, or his new wife. So he does an invocation of the Sliffs, and that's when she starts hearing those precarious voices, like, they're here for you, and she starts claiming to be channeling Aiwass. Now, it's also ancient Gaelic tradition that if a woman has a bat that lands in her hair and gets away with even one strand of it, that her soul will be damned eventually, like no matter what.
Yeah, things didn't
And
turn out for
it's
her so well either, if I recall correctly.
correct. Also, she didn't get
Didn't
credit for probably being the one who actually channeled the Book of the Law.
just like
It was
William
likely
Butler
her.
Yeats's wife did almost all the automatic writing for his Vision theory. It was again a woman in Gaelic tradition transmitting this wisdom from a spirit plane. Yeah.
And
I
so
personally think that Aiwass and Crowley's connection to the spirit probably was a real connection. I don't know what that spirit was, if it was actually his higher self or whatever, or his
because
fully
he learned
guarded
all the
angel.
Golden Dawn magics, this whole thing,
He
like
didn't. He
he
didn't. That's the problem. He
didn't.
didn't learn the Golden Dawn magic. He failed to pass his exam to finish the Golden Dawn, and people were really upset with his behavior. There was some problems with his rumored bisexuality, which was a real danger to have that come out because it was a crime. Oscar Wilde was in jail at the time. His wife had joined the Golden Dawn. Mathers was highly closeted, in my opinion. I think he went to Paris so he could run around and have fun with men, and his wife could do her thing, and they would be free of British jail threats. That's my opinion on those guys with that stuff. But Crowley went to Paris because Mathers needed a gambit against Horniman, who had cut him off financially after giving him millions by today's standards. And she wanted to still support Moyna because she was probably had a crush on her. And Moyna was, of course, sharing that money with her husband. Go figure. And so Horniman cut Mathers off. Mathers expelled Horniman, and the order was like, you can't expel someone for not giving you a bunch of money. That's the kind of shit that Zink and Griffin and all these fuckers do today, is they just want money or sex or both. And so Mathers used Crowley as a gambit to try and cause a stir, take over documents, take property. Eventually, Crowley got access to most of the Golden Dawn teachings and incorporated them, but you can see gaps in his practice where you can see he clearly wasn't trained in the rituals of the Golden Dawn, which 99% weren't taught until the Inner Order. And if Crowley was initiated into 5-6, it was done in Paris, probably with only 2 of the mandatory 3 adepts you need to do it, probably not with the complete vault, which also makes it invalid. And he certainly had no training by anyone who knew the rituals beyond the LBRP. There was no middle pillar, and all things like the analysis of the keyword or the BRH or any of the advanced ritual work, none of that would have been taught to Crowley during his time in the Golden Dawn or in the probationary grade of Portal, even especially because Mathers just sort of sceptered him into it, as we would say, rather than him actually being admitted by the body of Adepti. So Crowley's magical education was cut short. And if he was pissed off by that and then said, well, fuck you all, I'm just going to go hog wild and be the most famous occultist that's ever lived, well, he certainly succeeded in that true will, didn't he?
Well, I think if I'm going to answer completely honestly as someone who only has, his own limited understanding, it sounds a lot like, to me, Crowley's egregory is related to this idea of let's just DIY our way to God. And he seemed to do just that. Like, he really set out to get the exact perfect mansion to do this Abramelin ritual. He's going to do it the exact right way. He got all the preparations. He's like, I was born with money. I'm going to make this happen. Right. And so he gets the property. And what does he do? He just kind of fuckers around with it.
He
gets
flakes off. He
started.
doesn't even stay there. He then
Flakes
does
on it.
He does it
And then,
as he's going to bed, according to his own autohagiography.
yeah,
He travels the world with his money, doing whatever he does, and then just
doing
does
it in
it all mentally in bed as he's lying in bed. And he says that's how he did the Abramelin. Lying in bed each night, he would go through the prayers in his head and do them. And that's not how the Abramelin works. So,
okay, yes,
he
that
got
is
this
not
house.
how the Abramelin works.
He was planning on
but
isolating himself in the house and doing it right, and he didn't do it right. And so he didn't do the ritual. Like, I can't tell you that I did the Abramelin because for 6 months I meant to do it in my head or went through it as a mind game. That's not how it works.
Well, you know, if you've read the same book I did, which you did, I think, you got to give him a little bit more credit. It was only after many decades of practicing mind control, and like he was an amazing mountain climber. So his will and his concentration was nothing to joke at, and he would do it, you know, well, not just he would do it laying in bed, but he would do it on the train, he'd do it on the camel, he'd do it on the John, who fucking knows, right? Point being though is he got results, and I think that's a little bit of my point, is that he got the result from doing all this stuff even the wrong way to some extent, and then he kind of spent, you know, the rest of his life really trying to work things out and make basically a religion that reflected the truths of the world rather than like some stupid idealized like pipe dream, I guess. I think that's what he did, and I would only say that because as someone who's spent some time thinking about the world, I think the sentiment in the Book of the Law might be the most accurate in terms of like esoteric truth. I guess that's what makes me a Thelemite. Like,
Well, the Book of the Law is
it's
very interesting.
It's pretty close to Buddhism. It's pretty close to Buddhism, except the one big difference is that the suffering passes away, and there's something else there. That it's not all illusion. It's not all suffering. There is something that is vital and joyous and true that is left over. And if you identify with the other stuff, you're basically dead. And if you identify with the thing that remains, then that's like the seed of life. That's like Hadith in the Book of the Law. And, you know, his bride is the queen of space. Pretty groovy, man. He's like a serpent, and he's infinitely contracted because that's how his boners work. I don't know.
Well, I think Crowley had achieved a lot more with his workings of the ethers that you can see in Vision and the Voice, than he did when he was young, doing his version of the Abramelin. So I think and that's how these things work. We do them in these cycles. Like tonight is a very important night for anyone in the RRAC, and I'll be doing my very specific ritual work. That's the most intense work I do, and I'll be doing that later after this. And it ties me to a secret stream, as Steiner would say, but also it's my spirituality. So it only gives me what I put into it. Crowley did that really well, whatever his results, whatever he got out of it. I mean, if his true will was just to make sure that magic with a K didn't get forgotten, then that was quite ingenious and well achieved, I'd say, since that's how we all find a lot of this stuff, right? But I wouldn't recommend his methodology to people. But that's because I don't vibe with his religion. Essentially, if you do vibe with his religion, then that's a religious thing for you, and that's good. People should do that. Religion is separated from magic in many ways. It's just tied together through spirituality, which again is very personal and should be. It's up to you to make your spirituality beautiful and vibrant and transformative. You can't rely on any structure or external group to do that for you.
I'm really wondering if we should jump back into conspiracy. Did we completely lose Mari Sampson?
Um, yeah, from my knowledge, we haven't talked about any conspiracy theories here so far today, but I'm always
Well, if
good
you'd
to.
like to hear us discuss some hot takes about the state of the world, you can check out our Patreon section, and yeah, there's some hot takes in there, so you know where to find it. But I think we're mostly going to talk about magic here in the first hour and occultism, because well, I found my audience is pretty much here for the magic. They're not
Aren't
really
we all?
here for the
Aren't we
politics.
all? Yeah, no. People talk about that enough, man. But yeah, a conversation's a conversation. So if two people are gonna talk about something, they should just talk about it, share their thoughts. I mean, that's all any of us are doing. And hopefully, as we go through this life, we are open to others and to the other, and listen and revise our thoughts as we go. I mean, that's the essential dialogical problem that we need to keep alive more than anything, in my opinion. We gotta stay open to what we disagree with and what we don't know.
So let's just jump right to the big topic. What about God? Okay, and how we conceive of God, and why did you say Ave Sophia, and why did I say Ave Sophia back? Well, right before we met, I had an experience where, guess what? I was going to bed, just like Aleister Crowley, and I figured that would be a perfect time to do my magic work. Not that I hadn't done rituals earlier, but you get the point. I called out to Sophia, and wouldn't you know it, she showed up. And
Always does.
well, she really showed up. Like, she showed me all of her love all at once, and it wasn't like I just had this pleasant experience. It wasn't even that I had an intense experience. I had an experience that was so real. I officially did not and do not to this day, even after completely sobering up, I don't have any doubts anymore. I know that's God. I've met God. Her name is Sophia, dude. And what I find interesting about this is I feel justified saying this because if you go deep enough, like, for instance, John Dee and Edward Kelly got so far up God's butthole, and what did they find? They found the daughter of fortitude. They started with Medimi, and they worked their way to the daughter of fortitude. It's like she was there the whole time. And let's see.
I was going to say that in a lot of religions that I study,
Go for it.
there's a feminine aspect that's censored. I feel like it's censored, or like there's like some language put on top of it so that it doesn't seem feminine, but it is. Like the Holy Trinity, right? The Holy Spirit is Sophia. Like, it's the feminine aspect of the Trinity.
And you see that when you look at like Greek writings from early Christianity, like the Philokalia, which is all about wisdom and Sophia and the wisdom literature, and a lot of that was overwritten in a masculine context, along with like the early female apostles in the New Testament. In the New Testament, it says, and the other apostles were there with Paul, and it says Julia, and they changed that name to Junius because they wanted to be able to say that women couldn't be priests. So yeah,
Those little small dick pricks, dude.
yeah, right. Like, I learned that from our Greek teacher and in seminary, and our Greek scholar was like, "Yeah, this is what they did." It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's like, oh, okay, and that was not a new thing. The trend of like erasing the goddess has been going on since they ousted Asherah as the wife of Yahweh, right? You know, when they consolidated power in Judea to the temple and eradicated all the hill shrines.
They did it with Jesus too.
They do it all the time. I mean, we've been incredibly afraid of the feminine presence of God.
Jesus had a wife, but she was shameful, so they erased her.
He might have had a wife. He might have.
That's
also
the real conspiracy. That's the real fucking patriarchy. And this is my big point: is that if Aleister Crowley got better results
with his
you know,
wife.
that's not what I meant to say. My point, yeah, with his wife. No, you got that dead on, Mari. My point is that if Aleister Crowley returned Babylon, Sophia, New Wheat to the centrality of the formula, to the centrality of our idea of God, then he advanced us.
Right.
And he advanced us by going backwards to a truth that is
Was
old,
lost.
lost.
Was
Yes,
lost.
thank you.
But Crowley didn't do that
And-
at all. Like that was if Crowley
He
brought in the grandfather-
popularized it.
Oh yeah, sure. He popularized everything that was secret up until him.
Why are you mad, dude?
He got
yeah,
he
but
was he had to go to court for publishing private documents. So like,
but
he
everybody
got sued.
should know this.
Right. Well, it's something you learn in the mystery schools, right? In mysticism. It's
Right,
something
but everybody
experience.
should know this.
And now they do. Now everyone does. Yay.
But he helped
Except-
produce Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons helped produce like the entire worldview that we live in now.
And
You know, this is something that's affected all of us, for better or for
Absolutely.
worse.
Absolutely, yeah. Jack Parsons went and did the most goddess thing possible. He produced giant penises that can rocket off the earth.
I'm just sitting here marveling at the idea of it because I am so into that. Have you ever watched a launch in slow motion? It's the most beautiful
Yes.
thing you could ever imagine. All the
So
things disconnecting at exactly the
good.
right moment, and the levers all moving, and then like the flames
Smoke.
suck back in because of the vacuuming
Smoke.
effect as the rocket rises up, and yeah, smoke.
Smoke.
Oh, so much smoke.
I think the only
It's
launch I
just-
ever saw live was Space Shuttle Challenger, so I have a different memory as a child. than you.
No.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
sexual secret. It's a sexual truth. The dick only gets hard and rises because it is enchanted and impelled by the
explode.
mysterious feminine force.
Oh,
in this
Jesus,
case,
why?
it's the starry sky, beckoning us and calling us back to the source, right? Back to from whence we came, the stars. It to be born again. You know, it's also
Bro,
beautiful, man.
bro.
I love it to death. Getting me all thinking about rockets.
My elementary and middle school was named Challenger in honor.
My first job, I was a space endeavor camp counselor in the computer
Aw.
lab. Kofi.
That sounds like fun.
So, and when I was doing my research for one of the episodes we did about yokai, it was pretty much impossible to talk about yokai, which are Pokemon, without looking
Oh.
at Shinto. And this is one of the things that Mari just said, how the feminine aspect is just kind of swept under the rug. Because when I started looking into Shinto, they kept mentioning like offhand that there was this purification ritual called Chinkon. And whenever they talk about it, they'd be like, this was something the emperor had done to him before this or before that, and the emperor this and the emperor that. But if you really look, you can see that Chinkon is carried out by a woman shaman, sometimes a virgin, usually a younger woman with great beauty. And what she does is she starts dancing very slowly, and then she dances faster and faster and faster until she becomes one with the goddess. And it's through this connection with the goddess that she commands the spirits. But here's the thing, unlike in Western exorcism, where you're just like shouting Yahweh basically and Jesus Christ at a spirit to go away, you're actually sort of seducing the spirit that's missing from somebody back into their body, or you're appeasing a spirit that feels like left out or unheard, and you're kind of healing in the true sense of the word by holifying and reintegrating everything back together. And this is accomplished through the oracular ecstatic state of a young woman, which seems to harken back to a more ancient formula where back in the day, you know, the whore was sacred. All the oracles were women. Aleister Crowley, not giving credit to his wife, it did such a great disservice to Thelema because he was using part of that old oracular structure. And it's something that we need to return to. Basically, we need to. I guess this is what makes me a feminist. We need to reestablish the feminine in its centrality in terms of religion and spirituality. And this is the thing. I believe there is wisdom in the 2 = 0 formula. And the idea for me, and the thing that's going to heal this world, is if people could just wrap their head around it, it's the idea that the one is a means and not an end. 2 = 0. Put those two things in your pipe and smoke it. I promise. I promise it will heal the world. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to say.
It can't be one bad, the other good. It has to be integrated.
The bad and good thinking is so old school, it's not even funny. You've got to recognize in the spiritual journey that we know the presence of God, Keter, through Malkut, and that presence is the divine feminine in nature. That's what that is in the Shekinah in Kabbalah, right? And by ascending the tree, we fold it over like bending space so that Keter becomes Malkut, and those 2 points become a single point, and through that we achieve annihilation of the self.
2 = 0.
You cannot segregate the polar opposites. It's not meant to happen.
And they're not.
Like
they're not.
They're supposed to be different.
Perception.
They're supposed to be different, and they're supposed to come together and reconcile. Like, that is the meaning. I think that's the meaning of spiritual, or not spiritual, but physical reality. That's the spiritual meaning of physical reality. They're
complementary,
right? And
they
you don't know
each other.
And you don't know one without the other. So until you meet something that's completely opposite of you, it's like a mirror image. It's like looking in the mirror, guys. It's very simple to understand.
Well, just like you can't cross the abyss without reconciling yourself with your evil persona in Hermetic cosmology.
And usually,
is that how it works? Is that why I'm having such a hard time? Is because I am fucking evil.
You are usually physically attracted to something that is your physical antithesis, which is what he was saying. Like,
Well, I'm not saying that.
Well, I'm just saying that you can meet somebody that's your opposite, but you're going to be engaged by that.
Sure.
Maybe not attracted.
I don't see that as a rule. Like, I don't see this stuff playing out between people so much. I see this stuff as being a valuable structure for understanding our spiritual journey. I don't see it necessarily as that practically helpful when we look at our discord with other people that we agree or disagree with, except insofar as it comes to openness to the other, right? Because
but
we want to be balanced within ourselves.
But you don't think that that's important to meet somebody that's different than you?
Not at all. Why would that matter?
Well,
we meet people who are different from us every day.
To give you the opposite perspective.
Well, that you encounter that every day. Every time you get together with people, you're going to encounter that all the time.
Look,
right?
Look, I think we've arrived at this impasse because, look, complementary doesn't necessarily mean opposite. Complementary means the two things complete each other. And even though two opposites in their own way do kind of complete a concept, I could see where, that's what I'm saying.
I think if you encounter someone who's opposite in the way that you mean, or complementary in the way that Luke means, I think what you have is the making for a codependent relationship. Two people need to be very balanced in themselves to have a healthy relationship, whether it's intimate or not, or just passing.
I have a question. How come caffeine is the only socially acceptable drug to just like completely pound in the morning for every single man, woman, and like person above the age of 13? And
Sugar's probably more popular and expands the whole age gap, the whole age range.
Well, you're not wrong about that.
Yeah. Unplug from that sugar machine, folks.
Wow.
Listen to a guy sucking on a schwanz of nicotine.
The schwanz? The schwanz of nicotine?
This is my schwanz, and it gives me what I need. So I will be the master race, and you will not be.
Well, if either you are born the master race or you are not. Have you checked the book? I cannot read, so I cannot check the book. I don't know. I don't know how to do the German accent. We shouldn't be
Das
glorifying.
ist kein Problem. Wir sprechen über nichts, das nicht richtig ist.
We shouldn't be glorifying socialism. Come on. Here we go.
Are you implying that Nazism and socialism have something in common?
Yes.
Heresy.
No.
How could you possibly agree with history? History is not to be agreed with. It is to be written again.
Listen, buddy.
I have the
do.
hiccups.
There is some difference between national socialism and just wanting everyone to like all watch the exact same videos on the exact same social network in terms of socialism. Like they're different. You know what I mean? There's some big fucking differences. Like for instance, National Socialism can believe in like really bonkers ideas, like subterranean devil like origins of stuff, and I'm not explaining myself very well. There's a difference, but I'm not qualified to speak on it necessarily. But I do know there is one. So
you're a white guy with a
Anyway.
microphone, bro. You're qualified to say whatever you want. That's the
Exactly. That's why I have a talking dog for a co-host. Hey, if you want to hear me get into even more hot water, please check out the second half of the show, which we recorded before this part of the show. So you're actually hearing it's like Star Wars. You have to watch it all in fucked up order. It's great.
Tell my listeners where they can find you in your fucked up order.
You can always find The Whole Rabbit at www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where $5 gets you access to, well, all our extended episodes, much like this one, and where we go a bit deeper on things. I'll also send you a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our cover art. And if you pay a little bit more, you get some tarot readings. And if you pay even more, you can get your birth chart read by Mari Sampson.
Beautiful.
If she's allowed to stay on Discord much longer, because apparently she's been deplatformed due to having affiliations with people that we're not even going to talk about on the show because
done fucked up by planning to travel somewhere.
So, and honestly, in the second half of the show, we just kind of like go crazy talking about politics, and we don't usually do that on The Whole Rabbit. So if you'd like to kindly not axe me because I talked about politics, it makes everyone so mad. The last thing you should do, the last thing you should do within the polis, the center of the city where everyone gathers, the last thing you should do is talk about your thoughts. That's the worst possible thing you could do. Do not talk about your thoughts. Speaking of which, Magic Without Fears, the Hermetic podcast with Frater RC, is brought to you by our sponsors, 2-for-1 Adrenochrome. Use the code Epstein for the best savings in Adrenochrome today. Look, I really want to know, is Ghislaine Maxwell doing okay? Is she comfortable right now? I just want to make sure she's okay. We want to get her free and back on the streets as quickly as possible with as little inconvenience to her, with as little news coverage as humanly possible. I think that's really what we need right now. There's a lot of kids not in school. They need a hobby. She could provide them that hobby, that job, that meaningful source of employment, because I know the stimulus check is going to allow most of you to buy houses. That $600 is going to go a long way. But if we could just get Ghislaine the freedom she deserves, then we could get our employment for our underage kids back and rolling.
Free Ghislaine.
Free Ghislaine. She's a good woman, and I wish her well. Oh dear Lord. I'm just happy that we have finally come to the sobering conclusion that all conspiracy theories are completely bullshit. And not only are they bullshit, they're actually racists too. Isn't that funny how that works? How
some people actually haven't seen the Bohemian Grove footage. People don't even know that our elected officials and like giant
Wow,
like
really?
leaders of industry all get together in the forest like every summer and hang out like without like any representation of the people they well represent. And I think that's the thing is I think that they've spent so much I think they just don't want everyone to know how much gay prostitution goes on there. I think they created the whole Satan Moloch thing because they just didn't want them to know how much they like prostitutes. I'm not even kidding. I'm like half kidding, but no, really, like the conspiracy is that this all these rich people just hang out and like do blow with like gay hookers. That's the conspiracy, right? Like,
Uh,
I don't know.
I think
Somebody
that's.
cut me off.
If I think there's, why wouldn't they if they want to? I mean, they can do whatever they want. We've known about the island, Epstein's Island, for decades, and the people in power knew about it and did their best to keep it covered up and well funded. Like this is the world we live in. We let our leaders and our powerful people do these things, and it is us that lets them do it.
From what I understand, not even all of his compounds were raided.
Well, yeah, they didn't take us inside the temple on his island or show us the underground network of caves or test the walls inside that temple probably for blood or human residue at all. Of course they didn't. If like it's like if I tell you in my hand I have a diamond and you can have it if you do something and you're like, "Well, show me the diamond first." I'm like, "Nuh-uh. It's there, trust me." Like, come on. Like, oh, nothing bad happened in his temple. There was no sacrifices. There was no signs of anything. It's like, well, then normally when we're told that, they take us in and show us that. But like, you can't see. You got to just trust us on this one. Pedophile Island had nothing extraordinary or ritualistic or Moloch worshiping stuff going on at all. Like, we're not going to take. No one's going to take their word for that, except for the sheeple.
All right, we've got like 10, 20 minutes left, maybe longer if I feel caffeinated. Can we
Did you ever?
Can we get right to the chase? Because we're just gonna ramble about politics and really let it loose on the second half. But I want to ask the big question now.
I have a great way to end this. Speaking of Moloch, so when it's time, let me end it with this beautiful bit of poetry.
I do want to talk about that because this has come up on Twitter, on which talk and which Twitter and all that is basically there's a lot of women out there and men that basically want to do magic but not get embroiled in all the conspiracy theory or have to listen to some conspiracy theorists that are just straight up crazy patriarchal evangelical Christians or Nazis, right? Straight up Nazis. And in their mind, they see conspiracy theory as just like this messy nest of things full of disreputable people with false facts that like all vote for Trump, et cetera, and they're anti-Semitic and they all learn protocols of the elders of Zion. And that's kind of like, and I can appreciate where some of those people are coming from because you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to practice magic, right? And you shouldn't have to be. And you shouldn't have to subscribe to weird like conspiracy ideas to do magic. But at the same time, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, do the elites actually worship Moloch, or is this some more disinformation? Is this a joke that they do every summer just because they have a sense of humor? Is this how people blow off steam? Is this just Alex Jones trying to get more viewers? Like, what's the truth? If we were to boil down the truth of all the conspiracy theories as experienced occultists, as people that know a little bit about this and that, what do we think is actually going on? What is actually going on? What do you think? You give your take.
Definitely know that they're worshiping Moloch at Bohemian Grove. That's a fact. I bet there's a lot of different groups that worship a lot of different things. I mean, I'm sure Skull and Bones probably does their own thing. Everyone has their own thing. A lot of it involves compromising each other, blah, blah, blah. But what's actually going on brings us to a really interesting thing. It brings us to remote viewing and the whole psychic spies movement that happened in the States. That was all shut down, but it's widely believed that the most powerful of the psychics faked his own death, right? This is the new stuff out on Psychic Spies and all of this stuff, which is
Cool.
the government really, you got to watch Psychic Spies if you haven't seen that documentary, because it's Targ and all of them. But
I did see it.
yeah. So what's really striking to me is how they were using these things with success, and then they just shut it down, discredited it, came up with terms like conspiracy theory, and discredited psychism, discredited psychedelics at the same time, and just stopped talking about it. And then they're like, aliens, focus on aliens. Are there aliens? Are there not? You know, it's like this whole sort of distraction from humans developing human abilities that were very useful, perhaps too useful, and then we don't hear about it at all until recently again. What's going on with that? Like, this is my favorite conspiracy theory. Is the government secretly aware of the power of psychism, human potential, and magic, and shut down and put the kibosh on us talking about it because they're using it, because Russia's using it? Are all these countries that do know that there are people that are extraordinarily good at it and get real intel? Like, do they know that? Right?
Have you seen the anime Akira?
It's my I saw it in the theater, baby.
So
I'm old as fuck, remember?
we're living in 2020, which is the year that the Japanese Olympics didn't happen, which is we're basically living through Akira right now.
Tetsuo Kaneda.
Hell yeah, dude. Fucking. So like if you are so if that's what you're saying, right, is that is that the big picture, is that we have these intelligence agencies that have been fuckering around with psychic ability, maybe in terms of children, and we got a little too close to finding out, and they're willing to let the rotten fruit drop off the tree to create a new tree, because this is all just a big festering wound that can hardly be called civilization, etc., etc. And the elites are worried that the civilization that has been inherited by them is not going to last much longer. And so they have to start thinking of their own survival and recreating a new civilization where they can. Is that what's going on? Because that's sort of what it seems like. That's kind of vague. I mean, I guess that's the thing. I guess most conspiracy theorists really are helped by being able to be like, this is the bad guy. It is when they has this shaped eyes and this shaped hairs that they are evil, and that every time they worship their gods, they are evil. They're evil gods. That is why they have evil in their blood. That is the answer. Like, that's what people want. I guess that's why conspiracy theorists have a bad rap. But
people want distraction. People want entertainment and distraction. People want magic without doing the work and developing themselves to do it effectively.
That'd be me. Sorry, just to be honest.
Oh, it's all right. Sometimes it takes a while. One person I worked with this year joined one of the reputable GD orders, and she was concerned about not getting through the neophyte grade very quickly. I said, sure, I did it in a month. Crowley did it in a month. A lot of people do it in a month. And Crowley back in his day was like, to do the neophyte in a month would have been nothing. It would have taken very little work. In my day, it took a lot of work. But I said to her, look, you can take 1 year per grade. That's not bad. That's probably a better thing. It's probably, there's seven initiations in the Golden Dawn from neophyte to adeptus. And I think it's really worthwhile going through those 7 initiations. If it takes you 7 years, well, that's the same time it takes to train to be a Jesuit. Just fucking do it, get that training down. And then you have your black belt. Then you have the skills to go do what you want in any other system of magic. And you don't even need a book anymore. You don't need a book. Like, you will have everything you need. Books are fun, of course, but you don't need them. You have enough work for the rest of your lifetime at your fingertips, and you know how to work with any system you come across. Or more importantly, as you go into the higher stages of development of it as an adept, the next stage after Adeptus Minor in the Golden Dawn, or just let's think about it in terms of self-mastery and adepthood. You have to then create your own system and then progress yourself through that own system to the same state that you already got to in the Golden Dawn. By Golden Dawn, I mean, generally speaking,
See, now,
including
didn't
up
Crowley
to,
do that a little bit? Didn't Crowley
no,
kind of do
well,
that?
yeah, in a way. He definitely made his own. He definitely tried to still follow the steps that would lead you to exemptus, to the full thing. But again, I don't want to weigh people's mind down with these technical, like these are all fabricated things that we're just making up. We're like, oh, there's the tree of life, we made that up. There's these grades and these initiations, we all made that up. We all made all this stuff up. The stuff we didn't really make up was the experiences we have in spirituality as we go along our path. Those are very objective experiences felt by all humans, just like the experiences we have with spirits are not in our heads. The spirits are not all in our heads, right? If you go to a building like Stephen Skinner would recommend you do, and you want to have a physical manifestation of a spirit, whatever that means, you really got to do that in a building. They're not going to show up to that level of physical manifestation or any verging borderline astral state where they're perceived by everyone similarly in a building where there's other people doing their own thing. That's just not going to happen according to the grimoires, right? So it seems to me that the government wants us to think, distract us, and make us think magic doesn't work, that the techniques don't work. Meanwhile, they're using them all the time to spy and influence the world. I mean, look at John Dee. What did he do with his system? He was developing and given a system of magic that could influence terrestrial parts of the world through the spirits and angels of the ethers that
And
corresponded to
spy on
certain
them.
parts of the world, right? So he developed, well, he really just had time to develop the basic system because it's incredibly ornate and complex and beautiful. And then, the rest, he was told, I believe that he was told, in fact, that he would never get to use the system he's creating, like Moses not getting to enter the promised land. He was told that he's the purveyor of this system, the communicant for it, but he does not get to actually enjoy the fruits of his labor. And that's very much what a lot of the great work is for all of us, I think. To the magical point and the psychic spies, and I think the government doesn't, I think the world doesn't want human beings owning their power, especially their power to transform themselves and the world around them in every regard that can take place. We are definitely seeing a push, a psychic war, a form of ascesis against human power, right? We are being isolated from each other, separated, locked in boxes, and slowly being pushed towards where we're just going to get a stipend from our governments or global power and then be injected with whatever experimental medicine that they think might benefit our DNA to their advantage, not to ours. So that's what's really scary, and why I keep saying this is an occult revolution and a very good time for magic and a very good time for people to take ownership of their own divine, every man and woman is a star kind of thing.
At the end of the day, that's what I took away from Thelema, and what I am taking away from Thelema is that every man and every woman is a star, and there is an inherent kingship, and that this is a formula that goes back to ancient Egypt, and that this is the root of the American egregore, and it was taken from ancient Egypt because of that purpose. And I had a little bit of wisdom that came through to me during my enthusiasmos about spirits, and I wanted to drop it on you and see what you thought, as somebody who probably understands spirits and works with them more than myself. But I do work with spirits, and I wanted to share kind of how I think they work, because I've had a lifelong interest in exorcism. And once I learned that spirituality was actually a thing, and I stopped being like a pure material atheist, I guess, or a curious atheist, or a curious agnostic. Once I stopped with that, I said to myself, I would love to learn exorcism. But even though I was baptized Catholic, I've been through a divorce. Like, I don't plan on ever stopping sleeping with women, so I can't really be a priest, right? but I still believe it's possible to have to perform exorcism. After all, every culture on earth has exorcisms.
Yeah.
So
And actually, when I was training in
Yeah.
seminary, I got my hands on a copy of the old Latin Roman Catholic exorcism that was smuggled out of the Vatican. So I saw and got to experiment with that old Catholic exorcism. But
Ooh.
anyone can do an exorcism. The neophyte initiation of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is an exorcism. It's not really an initiation. The Zelator initiation is an initiation. Then the earth, then the air, water, and fire grade ceremonies are not actually initiations, they're advancements, because you've already started that cycle of the elements in Malkut, all 4 elements in Malkut, and that's where you go through that cycle. And then in the portal initiation, that's the next initiation, and Adeptus Solar initiation is the final one. So you have 3 degrees, really, essentially, like you have in Masonry and Wicca and most spiritual traditions. You have 3 degrees.
Well,
Masonry,
the
yeah.
ritual of the headless one or the bornless one, I like to
Yeah.
call it the headless one because that's closer to the original translation, is an exorcism ritual where, you get this, but you're supposed to
I'll be doing it
identify.
later.
Yeah, right. You identify as God, and you, instead of commanding spirits outside of yourself, you start commanding around the spirits inside of yourself, right? So I'm gonna drop this on you and see what you think. So during my enthusiasmos, I had a little bit of a conversation with Hecate, and that's when things got really intense. But this is what she told me, more or less. She told me that the reason the mortals hold the Ankh by the cross is because that represents the physical body, and then the gods hold the Ankh by the loop because they're connected to it through their abode is in the stars, and that's what the loop represents, is Nuit, like looped over, like on herself, like bent over the dome of the sky. And so the symbol of the Ankh is the symbol of starlight as it manifests down into the human body, which, from what I understand in tarot, would be Ottu 18, associated with the Hebrew letter Kof, the card of the moon. And it speaks to this mystery of starlight as it falls, and then it enters into our body in some way, and that this is how our life force works. And that's why the Ankh symbolizes the life force, because it's saying that this is the mechanism. And so when I learned about the Kagura dance in Shinto, and the idea of like, oh, well, when they work with spirits, they're like making the sad spirit like happy again. They're making the dead spirit talk. They're making the wandering spirit come home. They're reintegrating this thing. So it sounds to me like Catholic exorcism is like, or what, like basically the idea is you have this piece of starlight, you have this impulse, this piece of pure spirit, and it comes into your body, and then you somehow say no, like you invalidate it, or you say you're not good enough, or I don't identify with you. And then this piece of your will or your soul becomes like trapped, and it becomes like a prisoner, right? It goes into stasis, and it starts to like basically recruit your unconscious in order to realize itself as an action in
That
your life.
was
So
exactly my experience of possession when it happened to me in '98, and I had to stay in LA an extra few weeks after an event, and was basically saved with a lot of work by greatly honored Sora RD, one of the heads of our order, doing very intense energy work and stuff to help me push back that thing. And Kof is interesting as a trump and major arcana, as well as what it means, which is back of the head, right?
yeah,
Ears, back of the head. And that is where our Da'at sphere is partially located, which is one of the interesting things about the middle pillar ritual, is that we're vibrating divine names over the invisible Sephira, right? And interestingly, it corresponds to a chakra as well. But it's also something that we're very aware of, is a doorway. And when you sit on the throne of the Hierophant doing an initiation, it's incredibly remarkable how clear it is that something is opening up back here at the back of your head, and a current is moving through you. It doesn't feel as much like it comes down from your crown as it does from the invisible Sephira. And I think that has a lot to do with the invisible god forms that hold sway over the evil persona in the temple. Again, these are all invisible placements that people read about, but they actually don't know how they play out oftentimes unless you've run a GD order. And those influences are very delicate, and they definitely can. This is the area in which you can get fucked up. And like, I believe that that spirit entered me while doing a middle pillar, and I'm not sure to this day if it was my own evil persona gaining access to a large portion of my subconscious to the extent that it could actually influence my conscious mind and actions. And I diarized like hell out of this in the practicus grade when I was down in California, when this was really taking hold of me. It was a very distressing time. And what happened was, I was explained to me by the greatly honored Soar that, well, she was basically feeding me energy from Tiferet to that I was then using, and created like a cord, and it was powerful as all hell, that I could use that energy to then keep that malevolence, which was definitely, whether it was external or triggering something internal, doesn't matter. The idea that we're separate from the universe is debunked. Even physics has said we are actually a part of this universe. And if you do DMT a bunch, you're going to talk to those spirits and realize, oh, I'm one of you, co-creating this reality with you. I'm just in a different place. And they're just like, yo, that's how it is, right? Yeah, it's like, oh, really? And they're like, bonka donka 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 boom. Oh, time for you to leave. Fuck off. Right? Or maybe, do a little dance.
Get out of the Fey Mound. Get out of
But-
the Mentee. Get out of here.
So I opened myself up to forces that were able to have that influence on me, unfortunately, for a brief period. But then as I kept going through the grades, and I quickly advanced to Philosophus for the reason of needing a bit more juice, a bit more current coming into me, and started invoking Horus so I could keep my own energy strong enough. And once I went into Portal and Adeptus, my energetic bodies shifted in such a way that it was very apparent to me, like that was still there. I could still sense it, but I gained dominion over it in a very real way. Like, as I'm speaking about it, I can still sense through Da'at that averse tree, the klepote, the shells of our being, the shells of nature whisper broken things to us. And it's up to us to be strong enough to not listen to them. And that's where spirituality comes in. That's where this spiritual path is so important, because spirituality saves alcoholics in AA the same as it saves anyone, by becoming the better versions of ourselves, by invoking more light into our beings. We just can't be touched at a certain point. I asked a few psychics who are really good. I've tested psychics. We test psychics a lot. Like in the Golden Dawn, we used to like create egregores in our sphere and then go to a psychic and see if they would read the egregores we created rather than us. And they often would, because those things are very real. It's like, a way to test. So I've tested some psychics and had them confirm things, like look at things and note that they are real and true, and be able to detect things about people. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's real. You don't know this person. I'm asking you about this person, and you just told me things that are true. Then I've tested a few psychics and said, look at this person, look at that person, stuff like that. And they're like, I'm not getting anything. Does this person do a lot of serious magic? Are they really advanced? And oftentimes the answer is no, but they do their LBRP.
Wow. That's
Can't see someone.
fascinating.
Yeah, you think an LBRP is just some like waving your arms and saying some words. I tell you, it's not. And I've had I've never been able to psychically impact other magicians who do banishings or have a even remotely
Interesting.
strong circle. These rituals, they don't just work in our head. They influence our sphere of sensation. And if you do them, your sphere of sensation's safe. And no one's gonna, so
Goodness.
don't, like Aaron Leach would say, don't take any shit from punk ass spirits. And likewise, don't worry about any shit from other punk ass magicians, because if you're doing your work, they're not going to touch you. They're not going to touch
Right.
you. When
You're kind of
you're
protected.
putting in banishing rituals, you're invoking the highest names of God and calling archangels to guard watch. The idea that some fucking douchebag out there is able to trump the divine names of God and the four archangels, well, if you believe that they can, then you don't believe in what you're doing in the first place.
Absolutely.
And then maybe that's your problem.
I got one thing. Let me check one thing real quick. Hold on. I want to make sure I don't have a bad microphone issue. Oh,
People
thank
don't
God.
fuck me up magically. I fuck myself up magically just fine.
I just did that right now because I have this little setting on my microphone that before today, if it goes off, it makes my voice audio all fucked up. And I just noticed it was like that. And I was like, oh my God, did I just fuck up everything today? And I'm going back and I'm listening to it and it's fine. So I don't know what happened. But right as you were talking about that, how like you were talking about like your own doubts and stuff, it literally manifested in me. I was like, oh my God, Luke, you just fucked. It was crazy. Like that sound of the spirit of darkness. Hold on. All right, let me
well, what I'm talking about, Kleepote. You think the Kleepote aren't listening? You think they're not saying, oh, maybe we can get a little elbow in the doorway there? Like, of course they're trying. They're always, like trying to see what they can do. But you just keep doing the work, and they're not gonna mess with you too bad. Where they really mess with you is when you're doing work in those realms, and that's why it's so important to look up before you look down. Work with angels for ages. Work with spirits of light for ages before you touch broken spirits, because unless you've created those, let's call them beatific visions in your sphere, in your mind, in your heart and soul, when you go to those dark places, they're going to find chinks in your armor. They really are. Because you're not perfect. None of us are. We only become perfect through the work. We become perfect through the other, in a sense. So you gotta be aware that when you mess with Enochian, when you mess with chthonic spirits and these sort of entities, they're gonna mess with you. And when you talk about them, it's pretty normal for things around you to go a little sketchy.
I think I wanted to mention the last thing about I wanted to run this last bit. Excuse me. The thing I got distracted from that I wanted to bring back was how we have an ego, right? And the ego gets what it needs done by saying, this is me, this is not me, this is me, this is not me. And so when you have a piece of your soul that you've disidentified with, then it can become a demon and start like influencing your subconscious behavior. And this is what I think it does. This is where I was going with it, is I think it tries to subconsciously recreate the conditions under which it wants to express itself, or it needed to initially express itself, or to where a trauma occurred that will allow the person through awareness to own the problem and overcome the problem, or express it in some way. Like if someone can relive the trauma they went through, it can allow them to heal it. And I think that plays into the formula of exorcism that I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, that's very interesting.
I think the way
we take power from dark things is by naming them. And that's very true in the psychological process, right? Once you name the thing, you can move on from the thing. It's the naming it that's the hardest part, and naming it accurately. And the more accurately you can name those things, the easier it is to let them go.
So like someone who had a sexually abusive experience when they were younger might be attracted to those same things later in life as like a fetish, or might be the only thing that gets them off, because in some way it allows them to revisit where the trauma happened and have control over it. You know what I mean? At least that's the theory.
I've heard very similar things to that from people with PhDs in psychology. Yeah.
And me.
Though the nuance of it,
and Mari,
I'm not qualified to speak on. But I do have
I was just secretly hoping to
personal and a lot of family experience about that kind of stuff as well, and might even have some of that going on right now in the family. Fun times. Did Mari want to weigh in as we approach the end? The end game.
Yeah.
With abuse
I think
and
we
stuff?
can wrap it up. I think we can wrap it up around now. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrapped it up? For the free show?
Free show, free show. No, Mari.
What?
Oh, we were waiting for you to say something.
Like what?
A sphincter says what?
Mm.
Sorry, I don't know. It's a touchy topic. We can't really expect anyone to want to volunteer stuff on that stuff.
Well, I don't know. I feel like being in control is really the best healing mechanism.
And isn't that the root of all occult practices, to become in control of at least your own spirits?
And
then
confronting
ideally,
your
once you're in control of yourself.
Confronting fear.
Yeah.
So it's not, nothing is going to save us except ourselves, basically, and doing the work and taking control of our own lives and working in diligence to manifest our own dreams and our own quote unquote promised land. It's something we have to carve and etch out of the wood and the rock and the jello and cake, if you're into making cakes, which some of you might be. So, good God, there's only so much coffee in a day.
Intense stuff. Though I think we covered a lot of really interesting points that I've not got to cover, that we haven't covered before. So that was that's very productive in the end. I hope people enjoy some of the nuances we discussed, and we're just exploring, right? We're all explorers. We got to remember that we're all exploring the same condition of being alive for this very brief period of time that we are alive, and we can't be afraid of it, right? We have to, the Hieros in the neophyte initiation of the Hermetic or the Golden Dawn says, when you meet him for the first time and your hoodwink is pulled up, it says, he just basically sometimes yells, sometimes whispers. I'm not sure what's more scary, when the Hieros officer decides to scream it or whisper it. They're both terrifying, right? Like, fear is failure, so be without fear. For he who trembles at the flames and the floods and the shadows of the night has no part of divine light. Thou hast known me now, so pass thou on. The earlier version of the initiation, it wasn't quite as poetic. It's believed Yeats made it more poetic, but that's hotly debated amongst people who love pedantry and history. What's the difference? Oh, Shall we wrap it up with this beautiful invocation to the divine savior of the universe, Moloch?
Oh, fuck that.
Okay,
No,
so here we go.
I want to talk about Sophia. Why?
We already did. I think we're done. We're at like 3 hours, right?
Nah, we're only
Enamored.
like we're a
He's
little bit
enamored
longer.
with Sophia.
We've
Yeah,
been doing
why
this
we
for
got-
like 3 hours.
Okay, well, let me call upon Sophia so I'm ready to be guarded from that energy. It's funny.
You wrap up with Sophia. I will read
Hit me!
us the wise words from part 2 of Allen Ginsberg's beautiful poem.
I'm Britney Spears. My head is shaved. I've been to the ritual. Hit me, baby, one more fucking time, Frater
Right.
RC. Hit me with it. I got nothing can penetrate a shield with an ankh on it and my gladius of Roman Luciferian light. Hit me, barbarous one. Hit me.
That is the kind of thinking that Aaron Leach would laud, and I laud it too, brother. What sphinx of cement and aluminum bashed open their skulls and ate up their brains and imagination? Moloch, solitude, filth, ugliness, ash cans and unobtainable dollars, children screaming under the stairways, boys sobbing in armies, old men weeping in the parks. Moloch, Moloch, nightmare of Moloch, Moloch the loveless, mental Moloch, Moloch the heavy judger of men, Moloch the incomprehensible prison, Moloch the crossbones, soulless jailhouse and congress of sorrows, Moloch whose buildings are judgment, Moloch the vast stone of war, Moloch who stunned governments, Moloch whose mind is pure machinery, Moloch whose blood is running money, Moloch whose fingers are 10 armies, Moloch whose breast is a cannibal dynamo, Moloch whose ear is a smoking tomb. Allen Ginsberg.
You know what you
Now-
do if you see that dude?
He continues, if I see him, he's dead, man. Do you not know who Allen Ginsberg is?
No,
He's
we're
the
not
most
talking about
famous
the author.
music
We're
poet.
talking about the subject.
Oh yeah, if you see Moloch, punch him in the cock. Of course, Ginsberg ends the poem Howl with part 3, which starts off with 15 holies. Holy, 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 holy. So you're going to do your equivalent holy instead of Ginsberg with a little Sophia invocation here at the end, right?
Yeah, it goes a little something like this.
All right.
Eat carrots and shoot lasers. Ave Sophia!
Ave Sophia. All right, this has been
Okay,
fun,
we
guys.
did it.
I'm gonna
We
let you
did
go.
it.
Peace and love, homies.
Dude, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you. This has been awesome, and I wish we could talk more, but I think,
Call me anytime, baby.
yeah,
The eXXXening has happened. The eXXXening is done.
it
We
has.
went
Thank you.
beyond triple X. Vin
Yes,
Diesel
we
was
did.
angry.
I'm gonna reverse the order of our conversations, but other than that, I'm gonna put the racy one on Patreon and just tell my Patreons, it's like, hey man, my guest has got some hot fire. And I can't control everything that people say. So
You got to make
it's
that
not
money.
it's not even
honey.
that bad. It's not even that bad. It's just very politically incorrect. So that's all. We're not bad people. They'll understand. It's just Patreon's sort of a little too woke. Oh, your description. I was gonna make a joke. Your description of Moloch, basically the new Cyberpunk. Sad to say, but anyway.
I'm so glad I didn't get that game because it's a nightmare. It's a catastrophe. Though I don't get games at all. I'm waiting for Baldur's Gate 3. That's the next game I'll play. I think I didn't play games for since like Street Fighter 2 and Final Fantasy 2 in the 90s. Last console I owned was a SNES, but I did play The Witcher finally this year, and it was super
It's a good
fun.
one.
So I think I can handle one video game a year because I tried to do a second video game and downloaded Divinity Original Sin, and it stayed
Oh
up
my
till 5
god.
and stayed up till 5 a.m. And that's why I missed our podcasting the other morning when we were meant to do it. And so thanks for understanding. And yeah, video games are that's the true Moloch.
Hey, okay, so just to close this out then, to say goodbye to you off air, can I share one thing that's in my notes that's related to what you just said that we didn't get to talk
Sure.
about that I really care about? Okay.
Sure.
So, and I also did want to say that, so the thelemic shit I'm into right now is Ordoastri, just for your own curiosity. I think you
That's
can check it
Poke
out.
Runyon, right?
No, similar vein of thought, but no, that's in Lodris and that's
Ordoastri, yeah.
although they do worship Astaroth in that order too. Although we worship her as Sophia Babylon, or Kirahar Babylon is probably the name we use a lot.
Yeah, good
Anyway,
for you, man.
Ordo Astri, it's very interesting. It takes a lot of something you said. It takes, instead of using Hebrew names in the banishing, you're using Enochian names, and you're
Yeah,
saying,
that's a bad idea.
You think so?
Yeah.
Interesting.
they're terrestrial names for you want to invoke from the height of the tree, not from the depths below.
Well,
but hey,
in
let me know how it goes. If your life falls apart and you end up like Lee Hearsay in a mental institution, then we'll know I was right. And if you become the reborn master of magic, then we'll know I was wrong. More power to you.
Why do I feel like both of those are happening at the same time? Anyway, so
there's a different thing going on with Hebrew divine names and with Enochian, and the real thing is we don't actually have some definitive answer from some authority who knows what really is the truth. So all we can do is experiment. We're really at the beginning of this technology, as someone like Ashen Chassan would say, and we've only begun to see where, like, we haven't even talked about the fact that aliens might be energetic in part, and that there might be some like actual connection between spirituality and the metaphysical realm of nature as we have yet to understand, or we still can't even see dark matter. And we're going to learn a lot when we do, hopefully later in 2021, perceive dark matter for the first time through
well,
these
the
new
yokai
lenses.
episode, I learned about the Kagura a dance, and I learned that they've been having fucking UFOs for centuries, and they just blame it on fucking goddamn foxes. I'm not joking. The
I love
whole
that.
shittery, dude.
that.
The whole shittery, the fucking metal objects, the flying, the lights, all that. They're like, oh, that's just a fox after it's reached 100 years old. Okay, great.
Sounds good.
And that's it. They leave it at that.
Oh,
And the
man.
fucking, it's genius. Anyway, so this will all say. Okay, so this is from Ordo Astri. And actually, we reversed the pentacles for the same reason you mentioned about the Enochian spirits being the wrong thing, is because we believe we want to pull the energy down from.
But you invert the
Ether.
pentacles?
Yeah, the pentacles are inverted. And in fact, it's actually an intelligence test too. It's like we don't believe that the inverted pentagram is malefic. It's just
It's not
one
malefic.
is evolutionary, and one is evolutionary.
Yeah, but that's not how they work. Like the upside down pentagram is a symbol that represents matter governing spirit. So it's harmonious to chthonic spirits and terrestrial spirits or demons, and it's something they can relate to. So there's only one time in the Golden Dawn system where we use that symbol. It's when we're working with those beings, and the only time it's drawn in any initiation is over the invisible god form of Omuzatan, which represents the evil persona of the candidate. And we do draw an inverted pentagram in the neophyte initiation of the Golden Dawn to contain that evil spirit where over the candidate kneels when they take their vow.
I hear what you're saying.
Is invoked. I think that's the first
think
time
I
this
might
stuff's been
be
said online.
I might be outside of my element here. I would maybe urge you just to check out the material, just as my better and my expert in the occult.Maybe you could check it out and see what you think, because for me, it's been like
change the
water.
system.
Like,
so when people change the system, like I can understand, I can imagine exactly what your energetic experience might be like. Now, first of all, if you want to experience energies much more intensely, then you should work with terrestrial spirits or demons or things like that. And if you're going to do symbols that invoke these heavy, don't think of it as angels and demons, think of it as just spirits doing their thing. Because when you go into spirit realms or astral travel or do psychedelics, you're in these spirit realms. They don't have a sense of demons and angels, bro. I'm sure of that. I'm convinced that they don't have that sense. They have a sense of there's a lot of different spirits and they do a lot of different things. Some of those things are really fucked up, and so like some of those things are not fucked up and quite beautiful, but they're all functioning within this complex matrix of nature, natured, and nature naturing, and creating this universe that's still in flux and reflux and progress and destruction. It's all happening. It's all happening, man. And so like when you're working with those lower energies, that's why Enochian magic is so tempting, because you're working with very grounded down sort of energies and real, very manifest kinds of spirits. And they're just sitting there at D and Kelly's tower in Prague. They're just floating around. Just, you don't even need to do Enochian. You can just talk to them and they're like, yeah, we're here. Like, those beings are very easy to experience. So one of the heads of our order, TDL, he used to get in trouble, though you can't really get in trouble when you're head of an order, but he used to get called out by their adepts for taking practicus students and having them for their first scrying experience, scrying the 30th ether of text in the Enochian system, and people, other adepts were like, what are you doing? Get them scrying planetary angels or things like that. And he's like, but those energies, he would say, are so much more high, subtle in vibration. They're very hard to sense. And it's true, right? It's much harder to sense the angels of the Hashmalim than it is to sense the angels of the Aether text, because they're so close to our mundane physical plane and reality. So of course it's easier to scry them. And that was his rationale for having students learn that way. And no one could debate his argument, because it was sound. It was completely sound. And if you're doing the work properly, you're not in any danger of having problems occur. So
yeah, we also,
danger is having too much fun.
Instead of calling the angels of the quarters, you call Ishtar, Babylon, Ashtaroth, and Isa to the quarters. And
you're looking down before you look up.
And you call to EAO first in the stars.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
And then you
that'll
call
save you.
Sabaoth. I'm just curious what your outlook is. I mean,
totally
around with Golden Dawn rituals, and I've done both, and I've
Sabaoth's a good Hebrew divine name, though it's usually only really effective in it's a descriptor god name in conjunction with a divine god name, like, you know, Elohim Tsavayot, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yod He Vav He Tsavayot. In itself, it's not often used, but it is used in barbaric evocations as a muddled word because it has a history that extends far past just Hebrew. A lot of these words are old. Just like Egypt isn't a new, it wasn't a new creation. It was a rendition of Assyria. It was a child civilization of Phoenicia and Assyria and all these other civilizations. It wasn't this whole new thing that just sprang up out of nowhere and was revolutionary. Egypt was an emanation of earlier human civilizations and a
Well,
conglomeration.
I do want you to look at the Ordo stuff for me, just as my like I said, my occult better. Please check it out so you can tell me your thoughts. I kind of got the impression, not to sound too defensive or to talk your ear off too much, but it sounded
No,
a
it's
lot
fine.
like it took a lot of the really great ideas of Kenneth Grant, and instead of ending with tentacle monsters and like these vaguely like racist reminiscent ideas of ancient gods, it ends with Nuit and Horus and fucking like the Egyptian pantheon. That's where it goes. It goes
Yeah.
to the eternal ones. It goes to actual initiation. It doesn't end in Satan and tentacles. It ends in, it's taking a lot of those ideas that Kenneth Grant used and then moving them more back towards what the source might. I don't know. Check it out. See what you think.
a lot of
I'll
my
end with
work
this.
a lot of my work involved the Kenneth Grant system, especially the Kleepote of the tunnels. When from I was working with that stuff from the 90s on, even when I wasn't meant to. It's probably how I got in trouble in 98 with because I was doing that Kleepote and the seven deadly sins stuff in my own practice, but only tentatively. And the thing is, that's how that stuff sort of got into my sphere. And if you don't have the juice to force it out, it can take you over.
I guess what I'm saying is
So
the
in the system you're
pentagrams and the
talking about,
Enochian is the edgiest sounding thing in my system,
yeah,
and the rest of it
people like that.
isn't very
It's
edgy sounding.
it's the alluring. It literally is a very good comparison to the Star Wars light and dark side. It's not that the light Jedis don't get the dark side stuff. It's that they're like, look, if you start with that, it's gonna consume you. And a lot of people that get into demons and Enochian without a lot of the more Kabbalistic and beatific spiritual things like Eo, Osiris being reborn, all that stuff, they do tend to get bogged down in some pretty petty shit. So the proof's in the pudding. Your path is
Yeah.
your path. Maybe you are meant to start in darkness and come to light. Mostly in the Western esoteric tradition, the journey is to rise to the light and then go down into the darkness. Like when Jesus died, he goes down to hell because he had the tools to liberate his demons in his own sphere, and he could do that for the world, and then he went up to heaven and freed them. It's that I think of that as a metaphorical story for how we want to accomplish our great work by achieving union and conversation with our holy guardian angel, and then we dive down into the demons afterwards. You want to be reborn with Osiris before you start taking on the floor of the vault.
Yeah, there's no Goetia or anything like that in the system, or clip off so far in what I'm doing.
Right.
That's not,
There's a lot
it's
of
not that
systems out
edgy.
there. There's a lot of systems out there that substitute the more grounded or terrestrial energies for the more loosey, high vibrational ones because it feels more magical when you start a ritual working with a bunch of people and you're doing Ashtaroth and Babylon and all these things and then using Enochian. Of course, it's going to feel dense as fuck because that's what those energies are, and that's what you're doing. You're working in a very dense, like high vibration, low vibration. The terms are feeble at best. You're working in realms of spirit that are very close to the physical plane, and that's why the magic feels so much more real or palpable. But it's not. It's just you haven't trained your senses. It's way better to train your senses so that those highest levels become just as real to you as the lower levels, and then go into the lower levels. And then when you actually are in a serious path working, or working with a very unclean spirit, a very klipothic sort of spirit that's really rowdy or just cheeky, they can't get the better of you because you have as this base, you're like, okay. and that's when you're going to be recognized by those spirits as the Lord of life, triumphant over death. He who believeth in me shall rise with me. You have that integrated into your sphere of sensation. Those darker forces don't stand a chance. If you don't have that stuff, that really beautiful, bright light stuff, that if you can't just invoke Kether and have that enter your Malkut and like illuminate the planes of all existence within your heart, then you can get into some trouble with some of the darker stuff. That's just how it is. You might not. Have fun, experiment, make sure to write
Okay.
diaries so that when you're dead, other people can learn from your mistakes.
Okay. Do check it out. So I'll read a little bit from this. I'll let you go. So myth is a vehicle for the non-verbal unutterance, a message for the secret buried at the heart of all things. And thus a mua or mio means silent or secret, to close the mouth. To reveal an occult secret is to conceal it. For by declaring it, it is retold. And this is hated by the rationalist. Mu is the root of mythology. Even consideration of knowledge. It means every consideration of knowledge and utterance. To muse on something is to remember. Greek myth of the muses developed from Moirae, or norms of Norse mythology, personified as the three women who weave, spin, cut the thread of life. This is how Baba Yaga is represented, also in The Witcher, but also in mythology, the
Oh, I
same
love it.
way.
Awesome.
And she also has a connection to Moira as well. So I thought that was interesting. This mystery is accomplished by the power of ordinance called Moira by Greeks, or Ma'at or Mut to the ancient Egyptians. When wisdom is known, reason becomes mute. No value is afforded to divine apostasia in modern culture, and no purchase can be made upon it. So I thought that was an interesting piece that I thought about how the tale of Baba Yaga, who tests your purity, right, at the edge of the forest, right, and either gives you something that'll, like, give you the rest of your life, or feeds you, or basically consumes you. It's not a whole lot, not unlike how Ma'at takes your heart, weighs it against a feather. Also, a feather is oftentimes how you even find. You need a magic feather to find Baba Yaga's hut. And then if you don't pass this, if your heart's heavier than a feather, then your fucking heart gets fed to this beast. And so this ancient Slavic fucking witch woman is like, I don't know, kind of I don't know. I just saw a connection there. I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all.
cool. It's really fun talking about this stuff with you, man. I like talking magic, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, it's been great talking. I really appreciate you helping me this week and get the show going and do
I've
this
got
thing.
ritual bloodletting to get onto, so we'll talk soon.
All right, you let those Hebrew angels know that your boy Luke has been fucking around with Enochians and needs help.
You're probably if you're messing around with like Enochian angels, you're probably not on the radar of like planetary higher angels. I mean, some of the Enochian angels are planetary, of course. We're talking very fast and loose here, people. For those listening, we're talking in very general terms as a means of expressing experiences, and that's always going to be quite sloppy. So, but it isn't sloppy in terms of helping people understand what it's actually like to do these things. So that's where I think there's value in having these kinds of non-theoretical conversations about magic, which is what this is. We're talking about from our experiences here, and how humans experience things is not theoretical, it's visceral.
Yeah.
It's like, I did this and oh my god. So I'm going to
Yeah,
go
you
do some of
said
that myself now, because it is the solstice. It's the great conjunction. This is a great time to do work that would fuse the energies of Saturn, which guides us from Malkut to Yesod. Saturn, we shouldn't think about as being in Bina. We should think about it as being the pathway that governs the universe, taking us from Malkut to Yesod. So it's a great time to elevate from the material realm into the astral plane. And then Jupiter governs the hermit, and the path of Yod, the hand of doing. This is a great time to progress from Tiferet to Hesed. Now also Jupiter and Saturn represent an invisible path over Da'at, right? The abyss. And that invisible path we see vaguely through the lightning flash of creation, but the only way we can get back over the abyss is through the serpent of nature. And that, of course, comes from the secrecy of Harpocrates and silence, so that we don't let the chattering of Choronzon distract us and drag us down into the nitpicky realm of knowledge and facts and all of that kind of distraction that the babblers and the demons wanted to distract us with, so that we don't experience that momentary unification with our true and divine self, the summum bonum, the philosopher's stone, perfect wisdom and pure happiness.
2 equals 0. I get it. I feel it.
Amen, brother.
Thank you,
Do
man.
what thou wilt.
Yeah, absolutely. Ave Babylon. Sophia.
Profound.
Whatever.
What?
Eris 23, man. God bless.